Testing one, two, three. I. It sounds the same to me. It works okay. Oh boy, they're usually so live. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our fall board strategy session. I'm Ozzy Gonzalez, board president, and we're gathered here today to further advance and refine TriMet's Vision 2030 agency-wide plan as we work together to build this actionable roadmap for a thriving public transportation system. I find myself, I don't know about you all, but I find myself with some renewed optimism. And at least the time that I've spent here on the board, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from staff, from the general public, from each of you as we've gotten to know each other. And it's been great to hear how passionate people are generally, including our community, to advocate for a better transit. And that's part of what we're here to discuss today. And I can only imagine the chance that you've had to learn things along the way in your journeys. So together with the experience that we've gained as board members and the experience we bring to the table, we get to have a conversation. So we're going to be working together today for a few hours, and we're going to center our roles as board members and the needs of the community and the needs of the agency around this Vision 2030, as we have come to call it. And I'd like to begin by asking us to think back on our earlier visioning exercise. We've all had an opportunity to begin a little bit of thinking about the future. And today's the day where we get to refine that process. And we're going to be looking forward. We're going to be looking, this is the day where we get to be aspirational. We get to bring new ideas, innovations, and really put some of our own thoughts out into the universe to think about how public transit in the region is going to advance. And as before we get started, I do want to, there's some thanks in order. So I'd like to first thank everyone who has helped bring Vision 2030 this far forward. Of course, James Madison and your team, I can imagine you've got folks around you as well. Sam, thank you for bringing this forward, for throwing the gauntlet down. And to staff who has leaned into this conversation and is coming today to share some of your thoughts with the board. So, to everyone that's been racking their head around this, I want to express my gratitude of getting us to today. And I really hope that as board members, we get to bring some meaningful input to you that help chart the course of what is going to be the hot priorities as you move this forward. So it's through, I'd say, thoughtful consideration from all aspects of our organization that this is going to come together. From operations, from infrastructure, from safety, and from all of the ridership and customer experience side of this. And so, from the dedication of our employees across the board. It's a comprehensive approach. It's designed to bring about positive change and really help us become that robust system that we've all at one point or another desired to create. Now, as board members, and pardon me, I got to look to my left and my right a little bit to see you all today. As board members, I know that you all have taken the time to understand what customers, what employees, and what our shared communities need. And I ask that you bring all of that with you here today. And I hope that you share in my excitement for the future of TriMet and public transit in our Portland region. And finally, it's important enough to express a specific gratitude to you, Sam, because you are stepping forward and helping lead this journey, and you get to carry the mantle of Vision 2030. So I'm really grateful that you're leaning into this and you're open to the thoughts that are around you from all sides. And so I'm grateful that you're going to be bringing your leadership forward and helping us all aim higher, reach farther. And it also goes to say that, the work we're doing here today is not only comprehensive across the agency, but it does extend beyond the boundaries of our region. And it's something that hopefully will bring a lot of opportunities for us to share insights, learn and grow alongside our fellow transit partners in other regions. So it's important work that we have ahead of us. And it's important to say that Vision 2030 not only encompasses a lot of parts of our organization, but it's also coming to the heart of some key issues that our community and the world are high priorities for us. And transit is at the center of many things right now. So Vision 2030, as we go forward with this, it's going to be encompassing topics around climate action, around mobility, quality of life, the movement of people and the movement of things, because we're talking about how the right-of-way will be optimized. We're talking about how placemaking and where we go and why we go to those places is going to be served. And at the end of the day, it's really about the livability of our community at large. And so, everything we talk about is in cognizance of those grander issues that we're addressing. It's nice to focus on ridership, but it encompasses so many things. So we have the opportunity to serve our community, and I know that TriMet's going to be a driving force for this positive change. And so the discussions we have today are going to set a lot of those things in motion. So let us look forward to a future where public transit is not only a mode of transportation, but it's actually a catalyst for progress, a catalyst for viability as an urban community. And I'm excited about the path ahead. I couldn't emphasize that enough, and I really look forward to not only pursuing this work, but championing the work of 2030 and promoting a brighter and more connected future. At the end of the day, this is not only the work of Sam, it's not only the work of our leaders in the agency, it's something that we will all inhabit as board members, and ultimately, if we do this right, it's something our community and the general public will inhabit as well. This vision is not just a vision for what we're going to do, it's also what we're promising to do for the public. And with that, I will gladly turn it over to Sam, who's going to share some remarks and get us going.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Good morning, board, staff, public that's here. I feel very fortunate to be with you today, especially as we discuss Vision 2030. But before we do that, I want to bring Andrew Wilson up. He's going to talk with us a safety moment before we move forward.
So welcome. Glad everybody's here with us at the Public Safety Office today. I thought because so many people are
Everyone take some deep breaths.
Thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate the update. So I want to start off by this morning on working towards our Vision 2030. And I want to talk a little bit about change and all of the many hurdles that we face over our last 3 years as an organization. There was times that it felt uncertain on when we were going to be able to transition from COVID and the pandemic and all of the consistent crises that we were faced with to respond to looking forward and really planning ahead. So I'm really thankful. I'm going to go to your point that you made, President Gonzalez. I'm thankful for the board, thankful for staff, the executive team, really thankful for all of you who helped us to get through a tumultuous time and our shared history. And I'm really excited about the vision as we move forward, especially with this proactive plan here. The community really is looking for a unified leader, looking for unified regional leadership to move us forward. And we want to have an impact as we move forward, and also we want to really be able to make a difference for our community to see. So during the last couple of years, we have supported our community. We've strengthened employee relationships here at TriMet. We've navigated and embraced change, and we've grown stronger as we faced our challenges. Our new vision reflects our commitment to connecting people to opportunities, improving lives, and enhancing our environment. So today, we're going to welcome back James Madison, who's been a guide with our visioning efforts. But I want to give a very quick review of the agenda as we move forward. We're going to review past visioning exercises. We're going to understand our why for this effort. And then we're going to work with James, and we're going to review the rally cry that we've all worked through, and that's going to be led by James. And then I'll briefly go over our goals of Vision 2030, and then I'll turn it back to James and our executive team, who is going to participate with the board, who is going to set the stage and review our guiding framework, the focus areas, and also metrics. And then we'll take a quick break and then jump directly into a very live board discussion, a conversation to hear from you, to ensure that we're on the right path. And that's very critical, that our focus areas that we're going to talk about today are correct. And then finally, we will share next steps and decision-making timelines, and then kind of close out the session there. So I am very fortunate and very optimistic on what we all can achieve together and what we can do and bring outcome to Vision 2030. So while I get into Vision 2030 goals in a depth and a little bit later in the session, I want to stress the importance of what we are building towards and what we're shaping today. It's my hope that Vision 2030 will do the following. One, provide direction and focus. And by doing that, Vision 2030 is going to act as a beacon, focusing efforts and resources towards achieving our shared goal. Two, to be able to motivate and inspire. Big goals inspire and motivate people and also have them to push their limits a little bit. We will have a compelling vision of the future, and I believe that it will inspire our team to stay motivated even in the face of challenges, and it will inspire the community to be part of the big change. Number three, it's going to encourage innovation and creativity. Here, ambitious goals always encourage innovative thinking. And we've seen over the past 3 years, through our crisis response, our COVID recovery, when there's a need to achieve something significant, people will rise to the occasion and are more likely to really think outside of the box. And we've proven that over the last 3 years, explore new ideas, really find creative solutions to problems. And TriMet employees have a wealth of quality in that area there. Four, we're going to provide measurable progress. And this is very critical here. Vision 2030 is going to come with a measurable milestones. These milestones will provide a sense of accomplishments and help us to evaluate whether the effort are on track or not. And then five, we will prioritize resource allocations. This plan is going to help us identify the resources needed to achieve our goal. You've heard it before, and you'll hear it again. Success depends on as much as what we decide that we are not going to do, as much as we decide on what we're going to do. Number six, we are going to provide organizational alignment. Our shared objectives will create an even stronger and cohesive team. And then finally, we will create community legacy and impact. Vision 2030 will outlive individuals. It's my hope to leave a lasting impact on our communities, for our climate, and for the health and well-being of the region. We've talked about our why and why we do this work. And in addition to understanding our why, I also want us to fully understand and see, know, and feel what we want to do. So I want you to know we will be successful. And I want to repeat that we will be successful because it is built, Vision 2030, it's built on the spirit of TriMet and our community, and it's a reflection of the dedicated people who work here. So, again, I want to welcome back James Madison, who's here with us, and he's going to review with you what you've developed together during your board visioning sessions. And I got the great privilege to sit in every one, I think with exception of one. And he's going to prepare us for the robust discussions that we're going to have. So with that, James, I'm going to just turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everybody. We started 10 months ago on this journey at our first offsite with the executive director team and really talking about vision. And we came up with this Vision 2030. One of the things I believe is that action without vision is a nightmare. We've all been places where we do a lot of stuff, right, but we don't have the picture, so we don't sustain it, and then we change the stuff we're doing, right? And so we've been really clear. Also, we know that vision without action is a daydream. So we need to have both action and vision, and that's what we worked on. One of the principles we followed is that we need to see it in order to believe it. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 10 months really seeing the vision. We've had 12 meetings, 12 workshops, I'd call them, not meetings, within the TriMet organization. We have, by the end of this month, we'll be at 15 groups that will have gone through this exercise to really see what does it look like. It's what you went through. You all had a chance to experience that. We have probably included over 200 people by now with all the groups that have come together. And again, another one finance tomorrow and a few more in the next few weeks. So we're really in this process of enrolling people in the vision. We want input, we want buy-in, we want ownership because that brings empowerment. And one of the principles I learned years ago was when you involve people most impacted by the change, you get much better results because they're empowered and they feel like they own it. And so we've really, thanks to Sam, slowed down the process, right, and really allowed for everybody to participate in that. We have become very clear on what it looks like, which has gained confidence for us all, and now we're ready to take bold action. And those are the steps. Too often we jump into action without that clarity, and we have to go back and undo things. One of the things the Navy SEALs say is slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Slow down to figure it out up front, then it's smooth when you execute, then you have faster results. That is the approach that we've taken here. And so one of the exercises that you went through was the why exercise. Why are you here at TriMet? We've taken the whole organization through that. Some of the common themes that have come up around public service. There's a huge heart for public service as to why people are here at TriMet. Climate control has been big. Everybody wants to leave a better planet for their loved ones. A lot of discussion about restoring the region, way bigger than TriMet and even Portland, but restoring this region to prominence where it once was. There's a lot of passion, a lot of heart for that. Future for our kids and service to the community. We even talked last week about this idea that it says, somewhere it says that a wise person thinks about 3 generations and 200 years what it will look like. What will your children's children's children be talking about that started in 2023 with the Vision 2030 that we're working on, and which is way beyond our lifetime to what Sam mentioned before. But when we think that big, we will get very clear on things we need to do and things we should stop doing immediately that won't get us there when you have that clear picture. So that's how far out we're looking. This isn't something for 7 years. This is 3 generations, 200 years, right, Sam? And so one of the things, we've heard some amazing stories of people's whys and why they're here that just are really, really passionate. And so one of the ones, Anessa, is going to come up and share her story, and then we'll have another one.
I hear you back there. Roberta's whispering, don't cry. So, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you guys. This is a pretty personal story, so forgive me if I get a little emotional when I talk about it, but it'll also help demonstrate why transit is so incredibly important and why I do the work I do. So, again, Anessa Vitko, Executive Director of Transportation Operations. For those of you who don't know, thanks, Gwen. A lot of you who know me do know that my parents were long-haul truck drivers, so I've grown up in a mobility family, a little bit different. Freight's different than people. And as I got into transit, I've always sort of talked about the fact that we're in the business of moving people's heads, not cabbage heads, so it's definitely more delicate than freight, but it's very important all the same. So I have a family member who has had a pretty rough go of it. She ended up dropping out of school in 8th grade. She was involved with drugs. She got passed between two parents who arguably at least made her feel like she wasn't very wanted or loved. She went down not a great path. She ended up getting very heavily involved in drugs. She ended up having a child with a man who ended up in prison. She realized she had to clean up her act a little bit. She stopped using those drugs. She had a second child with another man who also ended up in prison. And instead of using street drugs, she drank, and she drank a lot. And she got a DUI, and she got a second DUI. She got another DUI. And so she had to go to jail. And I don't know if you guys have familiarity with folks who have kids, single parents. They actually make you do your jail time on the weekends. So they let you be out during the week. So for over a year, she went to jail on the weekends and had to find someone to take care of her kids. And with the DUI, you lose your license, you lose your that independence of a freedom, if you will, of a car. And she realized she was in a bad spot. And she made a decision to go back to school and get her GED, to get her associate's degree in accounting. She was able to work her way up from being what they call a lot boy in car lots where they run the cars around the yard to actually working in the office. She was able to pay for her son to play football, for her kids to have new clothes when the school year came. But when she when she was done with her jail time, she didn't have a car. Well, she had a car, but she couldn't drive it. She didn't have a license. So she had to rely on the bus. And she had to rely on that bus to get to class every day. She had to rely on it to pick her kids up, take her kids where she needed to take them, to get to her part-time job, 2 part-time jobs, in fact. And at any point, if that bus hadn't shown up for her, she could have been late to class and failed a test and not been able to succeed with where she went. She could have gotten in trouble with the state for not picking her kids up. She could have lost her job for being late. And she did it every day. And the one thing she has told me is that she could depend on during that time was at the bus. If she went out there, she knew that bus would show up and it would take her where she needed to be. When I started working in transit, obviously I knew her story. I didn't know how important transit was to her, because the one thing she also could rely on was that operator. And that operator became a source of strength for her. And one of her darkest days, she got on the bus and he asked her if she was okay, and she said no. But she told me later that when she came home, she felt seen, and so she didn't take a different approach to that day. And I share that because none of us ever know exactly what's going on with other people. And that operator on that day showed a little bit of kindness to someone that he knew as a regular rider, and it possibly saved her life. And so you'll hear me talk about this a little later, but when I think about what we're doing, and you heard Sam mention it, we're changing lives. But I want to remember we're also saving lives. We're giving people access to opportunities that they may would have never had. They have the ability to change their lives by using transit every single day, whether that's work, socializing, church, school, fill in the blank, as well as TriMet as an agency and other transit agencies across the world provide jobs that are incredible and help change the lives of their employees. So for me, every day when I wake up, I think about the fact that every single person who steps on one of our vehicles at any given moment, it's an opportunity for us to make their life better, to change it, and to possibly save it and make it better for everyone in their family. And as James mentioned, generations to come. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Ness. And as she mentioned, each ride, as we measure rides and we talk about 120, we're talking about interactions that can change lives. It's much bigger than just the transport. So thank you, Ness, for that. We have another video testimony. So David, cue that up.
Hi, I'm Alan Lato. I'm the Senior Director of Planning at TriMet. And my why? I'm here to help save the world. Transit service is critical for environmental sustainability of a community. It contributes to equity and gives the opportunity for economic chances and opportunities for people across our region. Also, the development that happens around transit is more bikeable, more walkable, more transit friendly. And that benefit is basically permanent. If you think about some of the most walkable main streets in the region, they were built up around streetcars 100 years ago and more. Those streetcars may be gone, and now we're providing service with frequent service buses. But that development pattern and the walkability and the fact that they're easier to get around without having to walk, without having to drive, is permanent benefit. The development that we encourage by building MAX and FX and providing frequent service bus is going to have a lasting benefit too. So there's only so much one person can do, but providing and improving transit service is a really important contribution. So I really believe that I and my colleagues are saving the world, one transit system and one region at a time.
So think about two things we heard: saving lives and changing the world. Right, that's the big aspirational things that we're leading as we really undertake Vision 2030. So one thing we've talked about is a rally cry, right? And the rally cry is this unifying statement. It's a few words that bring people together under one cause or one movement or idea that really galvanizes all the efforts. And it's been amazing to go through all these different groups and meetings and you'll see some of the statements, how close everybody is in terms of their heart. The heart that they have for why they're here and what they want to do. One thing about this is like an internal statement to really galvanize and bring us together. And one thing I can tell you about good rally cries, actually two things. They need to be small enough to fit on a T-shirt, and that T-shirt everybody ought to want to wear. So that's kind of what I'm going to show you some of the work and the drafts for those rally cries. We're still in the process of getting them down to that size, but take a look at those. What do you notice as a key contribution that you see kind of in the beginning of all the statements? What do you see over and over and over? Connect, right? I think when we went through all these, connect appears over like 12 times. It's all about connecting. And as you look at the impact, you see it's all about better life, better way, better, really helping people to have that better life. So this was a set of rally cry drafts that we created. Go to the next list. Yep, here's some more. Same thing. You see that same thread of connect, better life, making a difference, thriving, connecting people, connecting communities. Go to the next one. These are some you might recognize that you all put together as a board. Very similar theme, same heart. You can see in all the groups, and nobody saw the others before they did these. So what we've done is we've kind of boiled it down to a almost final list here. Almost final list. We're still whittling it down, but we don't have to debate the semantics of the words, but you can see the essence of it. It's about connecting people and communities for a better life. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And so we're still working through that, but we wanted to show you that and just see if you had any thoughts or input as you've been a part of the process and now you can see what the whole organization has put together. Any thoughts? Tyler?
It's really fun to see all the themes come out. I think we did ours. I did mine a while ago,
Yeah.
and so it's nice to see how it is both expanded and stayed the same in a
Yes.
way. Really cool. I did want to follow up a little bit because you mentioned all the meetings that have happened, and I really appreciate the work and bringing people into it before we get to the end point. And I did just want to flag, I hope there is a conversation too with the other key constituency here, which is the riders and the public at large. And I think that's a really, we've talked about connecting with the riders. We've also talked about using this as a chance to bring in key stakeholders throughout the region. I am really hopeful that when this plan comes forward, it is a path forward for a big assertive transit vision, and that will need all those partners. So I really hope that we can use this sort of next phase of the process to move outside the TriMet family to the broader community and the public that we serve.
Absolutely. The good part is that we found out that we are very united, right? So then we can go out to the community with that united message. So it makes it a little easier when we have that clarity. So absolutely. Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised as I was doing this exercise that our directors and up, as well as other board members and other staff, had very similar, as you said, heart behind what we do, why we show up here, whether you get paid or not, right? So I do also hope that those folks that you've met with earlier on. Now, I think my group was literally the last group you've met with. So now I know that what we came up with in a small group also it matches, right? So hopefully those folks who you met with earlier on also knows not just a little, rallying cry on a shirt, but actually ultimately knows that, other folks who I work alongside indirectly, directly, they have the similar heart. So I think that was a key encouragement for me. Not just the folks who are in the same room, but who are in different rooms at different times.
Right.
So this is very encouraging and helped me keep going, knowing that we have a similar values and similar sort of ultimate destiny where we're headed. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a message that we've shared continually in every group. And every group comes away with that same thing, like, wow, never did I really truly understand how close we are in terms of the heart and why we do what we do.
Thank you. And yes, I echo a lot of the comments already shared by the board. I keep thinking about this sort of statement that I want to put out there, and I want to build on it and elaborate a little bit. So it's, we're basically here at the right time, and this is the right place. But I also think about a third statement, which is, are we the right people? And I do believe we are the right people. It's 2023. We have a big vision for 2030. But I also don't know if everyone's going to stick around, right, for 2030. We may or we may not. So I think with are we the right people, I love this vision. I love that we're in alignment currently. But I also know that, visions have to be refined, right? They have to be worked at, looked at every year. So I just would encourage us, once we do have this vision set in place, to always keep working on it, because it's never really done. It's never fully complete. And again, in 2030, this board is going to look different. We're going to have different folks with different perspectives and lived experiences.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. One of the things that we've done in all the workshops is we've really spent a lot of time, like hours, talking about individuals' core values and what uniquely they bring to the table, because when they understand how they show up at their best and highest and connect to a vision, there's an intrinsic inspiration and motivation for being there that plugs in and really unleashes the potential that we all have. That is a choice, right? When people understand that, then they can make that choice versus feeling like they're part of something they don't have a choice. So that is why we've slowed down and really spent that time to really make sure people know what they uniquely bring and how it connects to this vision. Thank you.
As we distill in the rallying cry, I feel like the design principle of the Bauhaus architect Mies van der Rohe applies. Less is more.
Yes. We agree. Absolutely. So that just gives you a flavor. I like what you said, Thomas. Really just shows how even when we distill it down, because we've spent the time to talk through the whys and have the picture of the vision that you went, regardless of the words, everybody will have that picture. And they'll know that others had similar pictures of what that looks like. And that's the sustaining, because things aren't going to always be easy as we go through this, right? We're going to need to create some, really going to take a lot. But when we're anchored to the vision and the feeling that we got when we saw that vision, that's what will sustain us when things get tough. So thank you very much. Turn it back over to you, Sam.
All right, thanks, James. Nice session here. And really want to thank you, Anessa, for sharing with us your why, just as well as Alan Leto. I know he's not able to be with us in person, but thank you, Alan, as well. They provided us a really good foundation, I think, for our work session today, just kind of listening to there. So before we jump in, I want to give you a quick refresher of Vision 2030. I want to, the overview, goals, and the predicted benefits that's here. So let's start off with our vision is to deliver 120 million rides by 2030. So I want to state that again. Our vision is to deliver 120 million annual rides by 2030. And that's roughly about a 10% increase in our ridership per year for the next 6 years. So 10% increase in ridership per year for the next 6 years. Some may be asking right now, why are we making ridership our target? Well, we have made ridership the big goal here for a couple of benefited areas that will elevate this goal. One, we're going to mitigate our climate impact or impacts. We're going to improve freight movement. We're going to reduce overall congestion in our region. We're going to enhance mobility and positively impacting the community through increased access to opportunity. We've listed out everything on the overheads right now. Always like to think as I'm looking at these things here and looking at some of the benefits is that a rising tide lifts all boats as we move forward. So to deliver 120 million annual rides by 2030. Many of these benefits extend beyond transit, and that's also our goal. Our community, again, is looking for a regional leader to champion many of these interwoven concerns and efforts. The list that is up on the screen. So whether you ride with us or not, you'll reap the benefits of living in this region with a robust and widespread transit system. And when you do ride with us, you'll experience even more benefits. You'll have a safe, convenient, accessible, and affordable way to get you where you are going. And our focus is on climate action, and it extends beyond our boundaries. It impacts the entire region that we serve. I can even go on and say the entire state. But TriMet can significantly contribute to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and really creating a sustainable future for generations to come. We will also improve services. We will effectively market, heighten security, and also enhance the customer experience. And we believe by the consistently innovating and offering equitable service that we will make meaningful impact on people's lives. We will make meaningful impacts on people's lives. And it's going to take all of us to work together. And I want to state that again. It's going to take all of us to work together to make Vision 2030 a reality with every aspect of service fine-tuned to reach our goals. So infrastructure is at the heart of our vision here. So if you think about it, in order to accommodate higher ridership, deliver 120 million annual rides by 2030, we are investing in our we're investing and expanding our operating facilities and our fleet with more buses and trains to be able to deliver to that 120 million annual rides. We're also committed to maintaining a state of good repair. If you think about, we have 3 lines is reaching life expectancy. So our goal is to make sure that we upgrade that and we bring that state of good repair to have those lines run for another 50 years. Safety and reliability is critical to us and to our customer and to the transit system. So TriMet's success is really tied to our employees. You've heard me state that our employees are the lifeblood of TriMet. They're the ones who bring our vision to life. We're committed to hiring, training, retaining skilled and passionate employees who will deliver excellent services to our community. And our community is at the center of everything that we do. Building a stronger relationship, a stronger partnership with our community is crucial to attaining our Vision 2030. We will collaborate, as you stated, Director Frisbee, with our community groups, our partners to increase awareness of our services. We're going to engage them in our initiatives, and those initiatives will benefit our riders and also benefit our neighborhoods. And our plans includes enhancing security measures, launching marketing campaigns, introducing incentives to riders, expanding and improving services, engaging with our local communities to really tailor our services for better and betterment. And we want our passengers, as they ride our system, to feel safe and to feel comfortable when choosing public transit. And I will say to you, as your leader, that safety and cleanliness are non-negotiable. And I want to make sure I state that again. Safety and cleanliness are non-negotiable. We will undoubtedly get comments like, that's unattainable. But I have one response to all of you. It doesn't matter. Because if we don't reach the target of 120 million rides, it's okay. A quote that I hold closely as I'm thinking here is, don't let, and James and I and several people in our communications department, but don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So as we move forward, we're setting moonshot goals to inspire us, to motivate us, to direct us, and to focus us. Any gain in ridership will give this region benefits, I believe. And as I mentioned, will set us up on the path for success regardless of the ultimate timeline. And with that, I do not, and I'll repeat again, do not doubt our capabilities as TriMet. This is attainable, as we've talked about it. And by saying yes to Vision 2030, we will have to say no to some things, and that's okay again as we move forward. But we're going to track our efforts. We're going to hold each other accountable, board down. If we're not on target, we will recalibrate. If we are on target, we will celebrate as we move forward. But as we go after this goal, I know that we will grow stronger together, and we will move this organization forward. So when we leave here today, there's a couple things that I just want to put out that I once again hope that you walk away feeling energized, feeling very hopeful, and feeling upbeat about our future, and really feeling a sense of belonging as a region, as a community, to doing great things. So I'll pause here for a moment and just go back and say that this is incredible as we move forward. So I'll move on from here and from our goals and our benefits, and we're going to roll into our framework here as we look at our focus areas and also our metrics. So for that, James, I'm just going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. One of the things that we've done, and really to get clear and create that confidence and take action, is to really focus on some guiding framework lanes. Let's talk about it. Think about it that way. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take you through the pre-work that we've done so far. Your assignment, you have a sheet of paper on your right in front of you to take notes through each one. After the break, we're going to come back and get your feedback on anything you think that's missing, that needs to be added, that needs to be clarified. And again, remember, we could work on 100 things in each area. We want to work on the 20% that will deliver the 80% of the results, right, to really get started. So as we go through that, we want to be thinking about that. Was there a question? Yeah.
I think Director Edwards had a comment, and then I
Okay.
also did.
Thank you. I just, I'm a little late, but I just wanted to share that, and it's been mentioned by some of the board members and by Director Dessous as well, that I think that and it was really highlighted by Vanessa's telling of the story of the individual that had that sometimes terrible experience, but had a good experience with TriMet. I think we have to grow the TriMet family to include riders so that they feel like family. We have to remember that I think that some riders we can treat with agape love, and some riders we're going to have to treat with tough love and everything in between. Just like family, we don't get to choose our family, but we love our family, and we treat them accordingly. I think that needs to be at the core of what we're doing.
I want to appreciate those comments, Director Edwards. And I really want to say at the risk of beating a dead horse, but I'm pretty sure I'll get PETA complaints. So at the risk of repeating myself, I do want to go back to the 120 million rides, which I first want to applaud and I think cement, not to speak on behalf of all my board members, but a firm interest and an aggressive goal, right? I think looking at all the needs, we know that in some ways we have to be really aggressive and we have to meet that goal to deliver to the public what, the outcomes that they want. I am going to push, as I have before, for a mode share metric. I think the reality is to deliver a lot of the outcomes that you had up on the screen. It is actually about mode share as much as it is about the number of rides. If we're going to make progress on our climate goals, if we're going to ease congestion, if we're going to connect people to opportunities without having them spend more time sitting on a bus in traffic, we are actually competing for mode share, not just riders. We've got to be the easier, better choice for folks to get around. And so I will put in a plea, and I'm happy for that to be regionally different in different parts of the region. I'm happy for that to show up in different ways. But I think it behooves us to be real about the fact that at the end of the day, every time I have to get in my car because it's the better choice, I am personally deeply annoyed. And I'm lucky because that's not an economic hardship. That's just a values and a unpleasantness hardship for me. But I think at the end of the day, we need to make sure we are actually competing with all other modes of transportation, and we need to win.
Thank you for continuing to bring that up. But that's a good transition, because what we're going to do next is we're going to start with ridership. What we're going to do next is talk through the focus areas, and that's where we want you to capture anything you think is missing and any potential metrics. Imagine seeing on a monthly basis a dashboard of the top metrics for each area to know where we are. We're either red or we're green. So listen from that filter, and we're going to start with ridership.
Good morning, me again.
Good morning.
So first, again, Anessa Vitko. I have Andrew Wilson with me, and our third partner in crime for the ridership pillar of our guiding framework was Alan Leto, who you saw the video from earlier today, but he's traveling for work today, so he's unable to join us. So I'm going to repeat you're going to hear a little bit of what Sam's already said as we're moving forward, but ridership is sort of this key goal, right? 120 million annual boardings, that's been our moonshot, that's what we've been calling it. Inside, and when we think about it, we can think about it as a ridership rocket ship. I said that during directors exchange like 5 times, and I still can't say it straight. But we're looking at it being on that platform of the other guiding frameworks you're going to hear from our fellow executive directors: infrastructure, resources, people, and community. They're gonna come. And I have in this image, we have the focus areas open, because what we're going to do today is I'm going to present what we've sort of just started to brainstorm. We shared last week with the executive directors. Not there yet. thank you. We shared with the executive directors and are still taking all of their input to adjust what we're looking at. And of course, today we're going to absorb all of your guys' input and add it to that. So our goal, as you heard from Sam, is to substantially grow ridership year over year. It's to get to 120 million rides. Again, those are 120 million opportunities to change lives. Let's not think about those as people's, but opportunities to change lives. And as he also mentioned, just about over 10% per year over year of an increase in ridership that we're going to be aiming for. And I really do appreciate, Sam, when you mentioned the fact that we may not hit that aggressive moonshot goal of 120 million, but every step along the way, we're going to be doing things that improve our community. And to highlight some of those, we know that increasing ridership does support our economy and provide equitable opportunity and access. It eases congestion. It provides mobility for all people. It helps shape the future of our region, which you've heard a few times this morning mentioned. TriMet is a leader, and people are looking to us to do that. It will reduce emissions, support environmental and sustainability, and as well as increase opportunity for additional transit funding, because this is one of the measures that is used by the state and the federal government for looking at funding opportunities. So as we self-fulfilling prophecy, as we increase riderships, we can increase ridership, we can increase some funding opportunities. So TriMet has the ability to be an industry leader by providing a greater level of positive impact on our community and our region's future with higher ridership than we are currently experiencing. So what I want to do is go ahead and talk you through some of our proposed focus areas and some sample metrics to go in there. So we'll go ahead and next slide. Thank you. So that first area, service. When we think about ridership, we think about service. What does it mean to be reliable? What does on-time performance look like? What does access mean? It can mean a lot of different things. We have our Forward Together plan. You've heard about that a few times. And so when we're thinking about the focus area of service and the things that create and define service, we also want to look at what those metrics are. That could be percentage of on-time trips, number of new riders, new modes, Director Frisbee, mode split, new routes, new stops. Also looking at HOP users, the taps that we get through our HOP riders. So these are some of the areas that have been discussed. I'm going to go ahead, next slide. Another possible focus area is experience. When we're thinking about ridership and riders, we are thinking about their experience. That is a very broad scope of things. My last position at TriMet before I left and my first step to coming back was to oversee the customer experience department. This is a very, very sacred space for me. This means a lot of things to different people, but we're thinking about safety and security and cleanliness. You heard Sam say that during our directors exchange last week in the ridership work groups that were together. Those were the ones that rose to the top among the director groups as well. What are our rider amenities? And having a very welcoming and warm brand. So again, when we're thinking about metrics, this could be our number of safety and security related events, number of comments that we hear from the public regarding our cleanliness. We think about amenities, that could be shelters, benches, lights, customer information, wayfinding, Director Edwards. That's a big one for you. And of course, positive public sentiment. Next slide. Again, thinking about ridership and what focus area, we want to be thinking about equity, an equitable application of our service and our coverage, and how we find the balance sometimes between making sure we have equitable service and not just putting service out that is going to garner more rides. We have to do a service analysis and implementation of that, using an equity lens when we're thinking about our capital development. This is a great example when we're thinking about new services. Areas like 82nd Avenue and the opportunity for bus rapid transit in that is a perfect example of a high transit ridership with being able to serve a community that is traditionally underserved. So really thinking about how we apply our capital development. We're thinking about transit-oriented development and where we build those types of facilities to share with our neighbors. We're strategic and thoughtful about that. And of course, thinking about in-reach and outreach and connecting with our riders. And what does that look like from a community event standpoint and measuring those items. Last one. So as Sam mentioned, we will succeed. That is our goal. And Director Way, I really appreciated when you said the people, because we have the people. We have the desire, we have the mission, we have the public support in a way that we have not historically had in many, many years. Although I was gone for about 4.5, I mean, essentially I've been working with TriMet since 2006, and I can tell you there's more support and more energy from the community about what we're doing now than I think I've ever seen, and they're looking to us. We have a lot of conversations among the executive team and the director team that there are people looking to us for solutions for our region's problems. There are other transit agencies across the country who are looking to what we are doing to solve the challenges that they are facing in their communities. We have the people, we have the desire, we have the mission. The region expects it. We owe it to them. We owe it to our community members. It is a promise we have made, and we must pay on that. So, because TriMet is how life moves. That's it. That's next team.
Good morning. We are Team Infrastructure. I'm Mark Dorn, Executive Director of Capital Projects, or Engineering Construction, And this is Dan Blair, Executive Director of Maintenance, and Ethan Benetton, Executive Director of Information Technology. In order to improve our ridership, we're going to have to be providing an exceptional service, and that will be relying on, I don't need to hold that. Good. That relies heavily on the infrastructure that we're providing, and that supports that service. And so, that will need to improve the reliability and safety of the system, which will encourage ridership. We'll be looking to broaden the access that we provide, and also, as needed, increase that capacity. Our objectives will be to improve the system's performance, and that is through improved state of good repair and expanding the access and the service that we provide. But it's also how we deliver our capital projects to make sure that we're doing so efficiently, on time, under budget, and being fiscally sound, because that builds the public's confidence too in our ability to deliver. Next slide, please. So for infrastructure, we have a number of focus areas or sub-focus areas with access, and we've broken it down to access and capacity, service improvements, zero emissions, and technology. But it's all kind of central to that is state of good repair. As Sam mentioned, our blue line out to Gresham is now 37 years old, and we're starting to see that wear and tear. And so Dan is going to say a few words about state of good repair.
Next slide, please. System condition can reduce system reliability, affect on-time performance, and service delays negatively impact our customers' lives. How can we simultaneously provide more service, reduce costs, and improve service reliability?
And then equally to that is kind of that infrastructure that's not seen with information technology. So.
Thanks. So there is almost nothing that TriMet does that doesn't rely on a layer of information technology. So it's critical and pervasive, but it's also kind of invisible. We have the same kind of state of good repair challenges in IT that we have in physical systems, but it's hard to see. We usually call it technical debt, not state of good repair. In order to achieve Vision 2030, we need to be able to innovate, and we can't innovate on a foundation that isn't solid. So we need to both clean up our technical debt and then continue to innovate on top of that. So overall, our strategy for reducing technical debt is to be kind of opportunistic, to take advantage of when TriMet needs new features to achieve Vision 2030. Can we tackle that work at the same time as we're also reducing the tech debt? Can we leave everything cleaner when we touched it than before we touched it? So we have a lot of examples of this that are underway right now. One that's near and dear to my heart is a project which is going to improve the operator's experience with scheduling their shifts, scheduling their vacations very dramatically, but it's also allowing us at the same time to drop a large component of legacy software and move to an industry-leading platform where we'll be able to kind of hitch our wagon to their star and then get their improvements over time at a much better cost. Some of the metrics we're looking at for IT, obviously industry standard ones like, are our systems reliable? Are they up and running all the time? What's our system availability? But project success is a really important one, and not just did we finish a project on time and on budget, but did we actually achieve the benefit realization that was the reason for doing that project, which I think is the most important measure for that. And then actually directly measuring our technical debt and seeing if we're on track to paying it down. Thanks.
Great. Next slide. Another focus area for us is just the service improvements and what infrastructure can do for that. So Better Red project is a great example. It's going to address, we're about a year out from opening up the full extension of the Red Line service, and this will address one of our #1 on-time performance issues for the system, the light rail system. We'll be continuing the Better Bus program, working with the City of Portland and other agency jurisdictions through the region. 82nd Avenue BRT will be open and running by 2030, but we are also starting an effort to do a master plan for the region with looking at other BRT lines and where we can improve those services and improve access. So metrics will be travel time and ridership, of course, but also customer satisfactory and as I mentioned, how we deliver these projects. Next slide. And then access capacity. This relates to extensions of our light rail system or BRT system. Will be well into construction, the interstate bridge replacement and the extension for the light rail into Vancouver, but also supporting the Forward Together initiative and looking at what infrastructure is needed, and also there's a study right now which of those lines may warrant larger buses, the articulated buses. So again, the metrics would be that expanded service and coverage, and as well as the ridership. Next slide. And then zero emission bus will be 10 years away from our goal to have a non-diesel bus fleet. So right now we are concentrating on the fleet management plan and updating a facilities master plan in order to inform the programming of all the infrastructure we need, starting with the Columbia bus base, which is underway. It's in project development right now, but it's helping program those needs, but then also looking ahead at what the other needs for our existing facilities will have. And so we'll be just entering into the retrofits of the next 1 or 2 bus spaces as that fleet gets transitioned to the zero emission technology. So, and this will drive a very important decision for the agency, for all of us, on the use of battery electric versus the hydrogen technology as well. I think that's it. Any questions? Yeah? Okay.
Good morning, President Gonzalez, members of the board. My name is John Gardner. I am your Executive Director of Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. To my right,
Kim Sewell, Executive Director for Labor Relations and Human Resources.
Good morning. Brett Rogers, Acting Executive Director of Transit Systems and Asset Support.
and we are team people. We and the rest of the team at TriMet. But let me start with just echoing what Sam said. If people are TriMet's lifeblood, then as you know, we are constantly in need of transfusions, of talent. And of course, all are welcome, so we take all types of blood type. Next slide. So, sorry, next slide. So this is really about, when we say people, we really mean workforce, workplace, and ultimately culture, right? And so it's everything from improving how we recruit, to the onboarding, to just really sustaining and developing the talent that we have, and celebrating our employees. As you can guess, growing or doubling ridership will mean growing our labor force, and the only way to grow that is to have a culture and an organization that people want to come, grow, and strive at, right? And in our operations, we've done a lot of work to improve relationships to our represented employees, but there's so much work to be done. Next slide. So when we think about the goal, the ultimate goal is really to make TriMet the employer of choice, not the transit employer of choice, but the employer of choice for the Pacific Northwest. And in order to do that, we have overlapping areas of focus, from recruitment, training and development, total rewards, far beyond just employee compensation, career advancement, and ultimately the employer experience. Next slide. So just beginning with recruitment, we know we need to attract skilled employees who want to grow, stay, and thrive with the agency as we grow and thrive across the region. Now, the strategy and also the metrics are really about mapping hiring needs across every TriMet division, and how do we sort of plan that in a growth a process that grows as we grow our ridership. And that's about developing the pipeline. The workers we need tomorrow are in the middle schools, the high schools, the trade programs, the colleges around the region today, especially, as Director Way said, over the next 7 years. And how do we adjust our efforts to incorporate the reality of emerging technology? All that needs to be part of our process. Next slide. And of course, we need to make folks feel welcome, not just on their first day, but on their 35th year, as we have many employers with amazing tenure at the agency. So we can't forget the folks who have brought us this far as we grow and bring new talent into the agency. And we also need to understand that that's going to require developing training pathways for folks where they exist and where they want to go, and building connections and managing and measuring how many folks are actually participating in mentorship programs, and how many staff are actually taking advantage of staff development opportunities. Next slide. As that then leads to career advancement. So how much more can we do to develop and communicate the career ladders or lattices that exist within TriMet? It's not always moving up. Sometimes you need to move sideways to share your skills and abilities with other divisions to build that comprehensive skill set that allows you to move up or stair-step your way up to the next opportunity. So again, we have work to do when it comes to developing formal pathways around talent development. Next slide. And then there's the total rewards. As you know, we've done a ton of work over the last few years when it comes to compensation, and we've kind of lead the region when it comes to pay equity, but there's much more about employee recognition, total rewards that's beyond pay when it comes to benefits, employee recognition, and other tools to help employees feel supported as they begin their journey at TriMet. Next slide. Ultimately, all of this accumulates in the employee experience, and we want employers to feel connected and knowledgeable, not just about our desire to help them improve, but all the resources that exist for them within this agency, right? And ultimately, over the next few months, we're really excited to be working with you and the executive directors and our staff to understand what a diverse, equitable, inclusionary, and accessible TriMet means for them, and building out those strategies to make sure that exists for them in the years ahead. Next slide. So, of course, we are in the process of engaging you and all the executive directors and managers and supervisors. We have many steps and strategies in place, but it's time to really review what's in place and begin to identify gaps we're going to need to fill in order to kind of grow this effort across the organization. And as Director Way said, this is a beginning process, a living approach, so we need to be prepared to update efforts across the next 7 years in order to support this vision. Thank you very much.
I wanted to just give one plug to my HR staff, which falls right into this people pillar, which of course is near and dear to my heart. They're holding a hiring event right now at the DoubleTree, and it's for the maintenance and operation crew. And what is really telling about it is we are partnering with the union staff. They are there working with us to share how great a place TriMet is to work. So yay, I'm heading right over there as soon as this is done.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Gonzalez and members of the board. As we've said, we've talked about more service, more infrastructure, more vehicles. As you can imagine, this is going to require some more resources. Advance. Just a few, right? So while TriMet's financial resources are not fully yet focused on achieving Vision 2030, we are headed in that direction. We've not yet identified exactly what financial resources will be required to achieve the vision, what are existing resources that could be dedicated to the vision, and very importantly, what new resources could be out there that we can identify and bring in to TriMet. As we look at our goal, we want to grow our resources. We want to identify and make available those financial resources needed to fulfill the 2030 vision. As we look at our stewardship and making sure that we realize more from our existing resources, as we take a review of how are we spending our money, where are we spending our resources. You heard General Manager DeSue mention earlier, sometimes we're going to have to start saying no to some things to make sure that we are on focus and working towards Vision 2030. What new resources might be out there and available to TriMet? We had a very nice and informative brainstorming session during our last executives exchange, and it was amazing the different ideas that staff came up with for us to pursue. And while you can sit at the table and say, well, that's not possible because of X, Y, and Z, if you don't ask the question and if you don't start pursuing it, you'll never get a yes. So we made a healthy laundry list of opportunities, and it will be exciting to see those come to fulfillment. Vance? Are we doing the right thing now? How are we spending our money now? What opportunities exist to bring efficiencies? For example, we talked about our different modes of transportation and look at our cost per service hour. Are we operating the modes in the manner that is most sufficient and most economical to TriMet? So we'll be evaluating this area as well. Advance? So what are the metrics? I feel like I have it easier because it's more dollars in the wallet, right? We're going to count those dollars and we're going to see an increase there, right? But it comes in, looking at those efficiencies, new revenue sources, and doing better with the resources that we have. Vance? So we've engaged our directors and managers. We're identifying and evaluating those opportunities, and we'll be bringing back an action plan to increase those resources. That's everything. Thank you.
Yes. Almost forgot. As they say, save the best for last, and Shelley and I are here to perform. So here we go. Here we go. Next slide, please, Gwen. So our last piece of guiding framework is the community. And as you can imagine, we truly are the fabric that weaves our community together. And I think that we've seen that so prevalent throughout COVID, that we are definitely there to bring our community together. But we rely on relationships. That's those strong relationships to get us where we want to go. And when we think about Vision 2030, where we want to go, how we want to get there, we are going to rely more and more on our relationships to help us get there. And I will say this, and you probably have experienced it too in your own work atmospheres or with friends or community groups, a lot of those relationships have changed. People have left throughout COVID, they've retired, they've moved on. And we are in the same boat. And so it's really trying to figure out, reconnect with those relationships across the way, whether it's jurisdictional partners, whether it's the community groups, and the like. We are going to need to strengthen all of our relationships on so many levels to make it all happen. Advance. So we are proposing 3 focus areas: relationships, presence, reputation, and branding, and we'll go in further on all of those, and we'll start with relationships.
Good morning, board members. Starting with relationships, picture this: a consortium of entities that engage in regular construction projects in this region, like OMSI, OHSU, PSU, and TriMet, form together and partner to create a streamlined process for permitting within the city of Portland, such that we can get our projects done on time without 9 to 12 to 16 to 20 month delays that all of us have seen. This was actually in the works just before COVID. So this is an example of what we can do with relationships. Or picture this. Anytime that a TriMet route is going to be affected by construction or utility work, we know about it well in advance, and such that we can draft and build out reroutes, inform our public, and do it in a safe, timely manner. We used to be able to do that all the time before COVID. Or picture this last one. The next time we go out for an increase in the payroll tax, we have such a great relationship with our business community and all of the chambers of commerce within our region that they either support us or at least maintain neutrality about a payroll tax increase. That actually happened in 2014. So what we're talking about with relationships, we've done before, or we were in the process of doing. And so the next step for us was, okay, great. How do we rebuild so many of those relationships or strengthen the ones that we do have? Well, the first step is knowledge and awareness, correct? And so to that end, we envisioned coming up with something like a relationship mapper. Next slide, please. And the idea of the relationship mapper was to understand what relationships do we, and by we, we're including the board, all of our TriMet employees, what do we have relationship-wise with other partners within the region? Next slide, please. And so we've developed, thank you, Felicia, we've developed a relationship mapper that this is a static vision of what is actually a dynamic now document that we've created. But that first slide on the far left shows you just what types of partners that we have at the high level. If you were to click on one of those leaves, it would then open up to the next one, which then gets more specific. For example, what you're looking at there is clicking on the leaf on the far left that says transportation agencies. Then that middle slide shows you various transportation agencies. And again, this is just an example of what we're just starting to build out. But if you were to click then on one of those leaves within the middle slide, it would then open up the different relationships and titles of the individuals within, say, the Chariots Transportation Agency. And it would also identify who at TriMet has a relationship with one of those people at that agency. So that's what we're doing for relationships in starting to kind of map that out. The process has already begun. Thanks.
Go ahead and advance. So our next one is presence. And we have begun doing this, but we want TriMet to be everywhere. And I note this because Jennifer Kuzer has been doing this. Gosh, TriMet's here. Like there just brings this level of involvement that we want and need to see. And we actually, this last summer, we had, 40 plus different community events. We need to be out in the community. We need to listen to them. We also need to promote us and show them the various benefits of TriMet. And so our presence out in the community can be on a number of different levels, whether it's out in the community at a farmer's market or it's a table at an event of sorts. Where does TriMet need to be so that we are part of the discussion, this ongoing presence? And so that really is one of our next pillars or our focus areas in our guiding framework. How do we measure that? It's a little, we want to make sure that it is meaningful. So how do you gauge a meaningful interaction with presence? So something to put out there. Next slide. Our last slide really goes into reputation. And it's how we tell our story. We're educating and promoting the benefits of riding TriMet and that we are a good community partner and that we're doing our part for so many different reasons that Sam had made mention. Our climate, we're hearing younger people really come to the forefront to say, what are you doing about the climate? And that's really been a voice that we are listening to. And so many different community groups asking how we're going to access jobs, how are they accessing all the different things that Anessa made mention in her ridership category. So how do we build on all of that to educate the community, to build on our reputation? Here in a couple of weeks, you're going to hear our attitude and awareness survey and where we are with our job approval rating. That will be one metric that we will obviously track. And so keep that in the back of your head when you listen to that presentation at your October business meeting. But our reputation is huge. And every day we are using our reputation to further advance our vision 2030. So what we want to do is continue to work with the community, continue to work with our jurisdictional partners to essentially put deposits in that reputation bank, because at some point in time, something will happen. What that will be, hopefully it's on the manageable side. But we want to continue to build our relationship. And much like Shelley just said, that we have done all those things. We've had presence, we have built up relationships so that we can use our reputation to then go ask the community, whether it's an increase in payroll tax or it's support around a project that we want to move forward with. We can use our reputation to advance some of those key things to accomplish Vision 2030. Metrics, again, another squishy aspect of how we measure some of these things, because again, we want it to be meaningful. Are we accomplishing some of those goals? So it's one of those things that we really want to work through. And that's what we have for community.
All right, thank you, everybody. So what we're going to do next, if I counted correctly, there are about 20 different focus areas proposed. So we've got a lot of thinking, and you guys will have opportunity to share any additional, get clarification. We'll bring them back up, as well as metrics. Let's now take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at 10:50, and then we'll start with that. Go ahead, Ozzy.
Thank you. Just want to point out, as part of the break, there's a few board members that did not get their photograph retaken.
Okay.
If you could please stay up here, the photographer is nearby. They'll be escorting you to go get your photographs during the break. And as James mentioned, we're coming back where we're going to be asking questions for some of your feedback. Is that what's next?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
So put your thinking caps on. We've heard a lot.
Come back at 10:50.
I'm glad to see everyone having a good time. We are a tough crowd to get back together. But okay, we're back. We're going to regroup now, and we're coming into what I anticipate will be a productive board discussion. Now that we've set some foundation, we've laid the groundwork for what we understand the staff to see Vision 2030 encompassing. Now we're going to turn to my fellow board members for a critical look at our priorities. We've heard some ideas. We've heard the semblance of some metrics as well, and this is our opportunity to provide some feedback. So for the next hour, we're giving ourselves an hour for this, and we're going to have the support of James in facilitating the conversation. But we're going to dive a little deeper into focus areas as well as the metrics. So this is our moment to bring some of those ideas forward. And James, I believe that's all I've got on my docket here. Did I miss anything? You ready to go?
No, that's perfect. And Sam has one thing to do right before we get started.
Oh, okay. Sam?
Just a quick housekeeping piece that I would like to bring forward to the board, kind of as an unrelated matter, but I want to make sure that the board is aware of. This matter has to do with a resolution that came before you at the October board meeting. And most of you will recall that innovative idea that David Sauter, who's here with us, and Les Spittler, several months ago on the use of the red line shutdown. I want to talk to you just a few minutes about it. So let me get my bearing here, and I'll put forward. David's team several months ago used the red line shutdown on a bandfill that's coming up in mid-January 2024 as an opportunity to replace many of our rail ties on that section of the alignment. Our rail ties that's been there at this location on the bandfill for nearly 40 years. Also, some rail replacement as well. And this is a type of opportunity that doesn't come along very often, and we appreciate that the board has supported it by already approving several resolutions regarding the project, including approving the purchase of the rail ties themselves, and then also approving the CMGC type contract. The RFP is in the final stage, and we are all ready to make our selection public and really start the award process for the pre-constructive construction services. The amount of that pre-construction service is $113,000, which is well below the $1 million contracting threshold the board has delegated to me. However, it's our practice with the CMGC contract to come to the board prior to the initial construction contract, because the nature of these types of CMGC contracts is that the eventual overall aggregate cost will exceed $1 million, contracting authority. So you've seen this contract recently, including just last week with the CMGC contract for the Hollywood Hub Transit Center. We bring to you a series of contracts for a particular project as we enter into the next stage or phase of the project. So why am I raising this now? Is the time is truly of essence here. There are several critical actions that need to take place during this pre-construction service contract in order to be able to execute the contract modification and be able to mobilize to start construction in mid-January. So TriMet and the selected contract needs time to plan out the sequencing of the project to maximize the amount of work that can be completed during the red line shutdown. And we will be replacing disintegrating wooden ties with concrete ties, as well as replacing sections of rail. Developing and agreeing on a complex and detailed schedule is critical to being able to come to and agree upon price for construction. Second, TriMet and the selected contractor need to work together to progress design of the project and come to an agreed upon price for construction. For a project as complicated as this one, every day is critical to accomplish that goal. The contract will also need time to mobilize its workforce and equipment to be able to start construction work in mid-January, and some of the equipment that the contract will be using is out of state. Staff plan to bring a resolution to the December board meeting requesting authorization of the contracted services. Contract modification. So as you know, there's no November board, and the December board is early. So this creates a condensed time frame to be able to accomplish everything stated above. So for these reasons, I'm planning to execute the initial contract for $113,000 in the next few days, authorizing for any future contracts, including for construction services, will be brought to the board at your regular board meetings. And we're not asking for any formal board action at this time. We're simply informing you of this unusual time and sequence in the interest of transparency and really to give you a chance to ask any questions that you may have about it. So I have with me Director Spittler is here, as well as Director of Maintenance of Way, David Sauter, who's managing this project. Back to you, President Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. My only question is, does this modify at all the plan that we'd established for what we were trying to accomplish during the closure of the red line?
No, in fact, it's a critical decision in order to be able to accomplish that plan.
Thank you. I see no other. Oh, pardon me, Director Edwards. I wasn't sure who was fielding the questioning at this time. Go for it.
Thank you. I guess my only concern is that it's a midwinter start, and how is that going to impact the construction process?
It's a great question. Construction slows down in the wintertime with weather, but we've added an extra week onto the shutdown at the beginning to allow more time so we can still try to accomplish as much work, just expecting that the productivities will slow down and we'll have to deal with a weather event, sadly.
That's pretty ambitious.
Yeah. This whole thing was ambitious, though. We started a few months ago, and, you know, to be where we are now after less than 6 months of planning is incredible. So huge props to everyone who's been helping us.
Okay. I see no further questions, and there's no purpose for a board decision at this time, so I appreciate the advance notice and Godspeed. We hope that things do go better than planned, and we'll anticipate an update on this project and any subsequent decisions at the following board meeting. Thank you.
All right, we're going to transition back to the guiding framework. So here's the kind of the ground rules for this, really. It's to get clarity and understanding of any input you have on focus areas or metrics. Each of the leaders will come up and kind of be able to answer anything. It isn't necessarily to agree today to what we do, but really to gather all the input. There'll be another process to really converge on the top things. So we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of your input so that we can include it in what we're doing.
Thank you. And just to emphasize then, you know, this is not about the mandate of the board at this time. This is really about our feedback.
Yes.
And so we're not going to be voting on the metrics today. We're proposing a bunch of stuff, and then our leaders are going to come back to us with what they heard and then propose something more formal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Clear. Okay. Ridership number one.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Thomas.
Director Kim?
Yeah, I'll just start with a general comment for the whole, and then some specific comments. I think, as I think about this work for 2030, I think about the private sector who are working day and night to increase their market share. They're working hard, and this is an aggressive goal, and with aggressive KPIs your teams have developed. And you know, let us remind ourselves that we're not only extrinsically motivated. perhaps that too, but also we're intrinsically motivated as well. It's, for many of us, this is personal to us, where we're at as a region, as a TriMet in 2030. So thank you all, and just want to encourage you, and I'm encouraged by everyone as well. For this, just 3 comments here. So percentage of on-time performance, on-time trips. Wanted to sort of check about, hey, would we be adjusting our schedule at all? It's schedule itself, which functions as a sort of a grading rubric, right? And if so, let's make sure we know why we're doing it. And I just wanted to ensure that we're not, moving the goalpost to sort of increase the numbers at all. So we're sort of, intellectually honest about this process for ourselves. And comment about the number of cleanliness comments from the public. It is what it is. It's something that we can measure easily, but it is a bit passive, right? So what are some other QA/QC, active QA/QC method that we can do for spot checking for more objective and more active metric that we can on the first of the month? Perhaps it's random, whatever it is. So it's slightly more active than passive. And then in terms of the partnerships, I love looking at the number of new partners, but also let us also look at the size of their partners and then the region they serve, so that there's sort of a couple different sub metrics within that metric. Thank you.
Thank you. And James, help me understand a little of the format here. I know that we were presented with these pillars,
Yes.
and there was the groups that kind of bucketed these things. Are you expecting us to give feedback in that same structure, or are we? You let us know. How.
Yeah, so we're going to focus on ridership now, and they presented service, experience, and equity. And so any feedback that you all capture or anything else you think that needs to be included.
Thank you. And please feel free to raise hands. I'll do my best at looking left and right and keep us at least in the order of appearance. I'll apologize in advance. I won't get it right every time. Director Edwards.
Thank you. That was a good presentation on the ridership issue. My concern, though, is that TriMet being a large agency, it's like trying to turn a large ship, ocean liner, not a rowboat. The annual equity analysis, is there been any thought put in to have a semi-annual equity analysis? Because, if it takes a year before we're going to get the information, it's going to take a while to compile that data and get it back. And then to react to it or try to make any changes, it's going to take another, 6 months to make that happen. That's a long time. And so if we could perhaps have a semi-annual equity analysis, I think that would be in the better interest of what we're trying to do, and we're reacting to the public in a much expedited fashion.
It feels like I should respond to that. I think it's a great point. And I think we will capture more information as we go forward. We wrapped up our Reimagine Public Safety campaign. And now it's really incumbent upon us, I think, to continue to get feedback from the community in terms of how we're doing. So I know we've had some conversations, John Gardner and I, about that kind of activity and JC. But into this next year, I think it's a great point. So just.
Thank you.
And I'll quickly interject, and I know you're next, Director Y. I think with regards to any of these metrics, the frequency of reporting is something we would love to hear back from you on. Some of these things we're just bringing up in a vacuum, and there might be things that lend themselves to an annual report. There may be things that go into weekly status updates, and I think that level of granularity will depend on the metric and how effective it is for us to learn and evolve. So just keep that in mind, and when you do come back with your plans, it would be great to start differentiating not only what metric you are applying, but what sort of reporting cycle you think is the appropriate one. So that's just a global comment. Director Y?
Thank you. I think around ridership, and again, maybe this could cut across all the pillars, is just continuing to think about our riders, right? Demographically speaking, age-wise, age range, And where I'm going with that is that 2030 is also another really significant year because of a thing called the census that happens every 10 years in our country, where everybody is going to be counted, right, in order to receive monies for all types of different services and programs. So I would love us to explore how we can, really leverage the work that we're doing at TriMet to build this vision, but also think about what is the population, what is Oregon going to really look like in the next 10 years. And as the census is also being conducted in 2030, really, use those numbers, right, in order to make the case for why we need, the XYZ that we're going for. So I just want to, again, plug in the census because that is a huge effort that is going to be happening. And then I think around ridership, just want to bring us back to maybe perhaps what I was maybe not seeing here on the possible focus areas is just continuing to even do more focus groups with all the different segments of our rider community, right? From folks who are transit dependent to folks who, used to work downtown but are no longer doing it for whatever reason, but they were our riders once. So really just to continue to center that rider's voice in this pillar that we're trying to grow.
Thank you, Director Wade. And sorry, I keep messing up. I know. Director Frisbee.
Thank you both so much for your presentation and giving us a chance to dive in. I know the development of metrics is really hard and it's also really important. So I just want to I know so much work has gone into, for everyone who's come up, the pieces that are being put forward for us today. I really appreciate it. I thought the service metrics to me are really, critical and right on par. And same with the experience metrics. To me, particularly in the short term, those experience metrics, particularly around safety and security, feel so critical. And we know, speaking of focus groups with our riders, that is one of our biggest challenges in both retaining folks and bringing new folks onto the system. And so, thank you, I think, for putting a lot of thought into that. My feeling is that the equity one, there's actually still a fair amount of more work there. And I'm looking at John Gardner over in the corner also. But, as the organization's IDEA strategy, was that close enough? Okay. Sorry, I have DEI in my head. Normally it's different everywhere you go. But as our strategy comes out to increase inclusion, diversity, and equity, I hope that feeds into this. And I think the equity, to me, doing the equity analysis is great, but that would come out of what I assume would come out of that are sort of the critical needs that we need to advance. And I would hope that those would actually eventually shift over and become metrics. So I am sure you are all thinking about that already. I just want to embolden you to think about that more and know that I think that's critically important.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Director Kellogg?
Thank you. So I think we're looking at the right things in terms of the ridership, the reliability, the experience, the equity. I want to drill down a little bit on the experience one. This piggybacks a little bit on Director Frisbee's comments and also comments I made at the last board meeting that were reinforced this morning by the general manager about the safety and security concern, that this is our top priority, right? And so I learned not long ago that about 15 years ago, TriMet had a board level committee for safety and security. And given the importance of that issue and that we don't have that committee anymore, I'd like to explore the idea of perhaps reinstating that committee, one that could not only understand the metrics, but drill down a little deeper into it. And as far as those metrics go, not only understanding them internally, but publicizing them externally. That yes, we're doing things, yes, things are getting better. So that the message for people who have stayed away from TriMet would get some messaging that says, yes, it's okay to come back now. They come back. We've got those, constraints in place, and all of a sudden they tell their friends, and our path to greater ridership, greater affordability, availability, opportunity, all of those things are met by doing that. So just food for thought.
Excellent comment, and I'll interject quickly before we go to Director Lewis. Another global comment, much like with the frequency of when a metric is reported out on, I'd encourage you to come back to us with a plan for the best vehicle for board oversight of those metrics. We meet monthly, we get weekly reports, and we get annual reports sprinkled into agendas in board meetings. But I think, to Director Kellogg's point, there may be opportunities where a board role on a committee, whether it's got community involvement or it's all with staff, might be a vehicle for us to have that right refresh rate and oversight role. So I'd suggest that you come back to us with any opportunities where the formation of a committee might be appropriate. And I think with regards to safety and security, on the heels of reimagining public safety, with all of the work and the focus around safety and security, I would imagine there's going to be some incarnation where this topic will continue to be brought through in a consistent format. On top of the annual crash review reports, which are more of a retrospective. And I'll stop there. Thank you, Director Lewis, please.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. For this particular group, you're the increased ridership group. Thank you for actually bringing forward the safety and security piece. One of the things that I realized being the board liaison to the reimagining public safety for the last year and a half. Oh, that's our thing, our test.
It's early.
No, we can't turn the phones off.
We did not do this. This is a
Yeah. I planned that way. That safety and security, it's right on time. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now that we have that safety and security test.
I heard we're doing it.
Where was I? Just from being the board liaison on that committee. One of the things that was real important that came out in one of the original reports that John put together was what the public needs to feel safe. And so it's part of your metrics. All right, whose phone's on a different time zone?
Punctual ones.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think one of the things that was really clear is what the public needs to feel safe. And I would like to see, or would like to offer, that you have what the presence of safety, what does that look like for each of our communities? Because what's feeling safe for our Black community is not the same for grandma down the street. So in your metrics, how will you measure a presence of safety on our lines? And so to look at that, I'd be interested in your thoughts. But I think that's a much needed metrics of how we measure safety and how that crosses our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lewis. And I have a few thoughts on ridership and how we can incorporate some metrics. I think about this as maybe too much of a private sector kind of mentality is really knowing your customer and getting that granularity of their behavior patterns. And I think with our new hop card capabilities, there's a lot more we can learn. So the first batch of metrics I think about are really about understanding our riders in a much more granular way. It would be great for us to be able to understand and monitor how many new tappers we're getting month to month. How many of our riders are hitting the cap each month? What percent of our overall ridership is hitting the monthly cap? What percent is low income or any subsidy program? What percent is youth? Those capabilities will reveal a lot on where our strengths and our weaknesses can be. I think the same as I'll give you a couple others. The percent of full price taps. They're going to tell us a lot about how many occasional riders, how many visitors are coming onto our system. The percent of taps on high frequency routes will start giving us an understanding of how different routes are performing. And the percent of non-commuter rides based on, off-peak hours, Saturdays, weekends, evenings, will start to reveal the types of needs that we are able to fulfill with our rides. So to me, those are all metrics that can give us some insight, and to the extent to which we can start mining that data and learning from it, it lets us create more focused programs. With regards to rider experience, I think the obvious ones are like the number of cleanliness reports, the number of safety reports. What I'd like to add to that is that, if we do this right, I'm not aiming to have no incident reports. I'm aiming to have a lot of incident reports, which means our riders are engaging and we're learning from them. So I think high utilization of the reporting system would be an interesting metric. And then finally, in closing, I think that it behooves us to not only rely on the data and metrics to tell us about our riders, but to do a little bit of a proactive analysis where we come up with rider profiles and really lean into what we are offering those different types of riders. A third grader going on a field trip, what is the rider profile? What services are we providing that rider so that they're informed, safe, come out empowered, more knowledgeable about our system? And so I think that kind of analysis can really help us. A non-English speaker, what's the rider profile for a non-English speaker? So that we can get into the head of that individual rider. What are we doing to serve that rider? Mobility impaired is another great example of what we can do to understand, not always in a feedback model, but also in a proactive, what in a best case scenario, what are we offering as services and amenities and accommodations? So those are some of my comments around the ridership.
I have one last.
Yes, Director Lewis?
Sorry, I have one last, which really kind of ties into our president here. When we had our meeting, when we had our group powwow, well, I shouldn't say powwow, when we had our group gathering to do our why, one of the things that I suggested was the anatomy of a rider and what that looks like. And so tied into what Ozzy just said, you could use, instead of the relationship mapper, a rider mapper. I love that idea. I'm a visual person, and so if I tapped on the tree and saw someone with a grade schooler, it would branch out to what their anatomy looks like. And so the anatomy of, that was kind of how I framed it, the anatomy of a rider. And then if it's a person who has never driven, a lot of our immigrant community does not own cars. A lot of the women that are Muslim are not allowed to drive. So what is the anatomy? Where do they go? What do they do? So it would be nice to see it in, I guess if you were playing around with how that would look, that would be a fun tool to see. Thank you.
Director Way?
I love this conversation. Thank you, Director Lewis. It just kind of reminds me of going back to the rallying cry of really TriMet's rider community is all of our community, right? I mean, it's the public and it's the family that we're trying to build. So I love all these ideas of, digging in deeper, right, to what does that family look like and their backgrounds. But I just want to make that emphasis of creating that sense of continuing to create that sense of community on our system. And as, again, you're developing these metrics and we're moving forward to, I think, also not silo. I'm not saying you're doing this, but make it so that we are centering voices in various communities, but we're also doing it in a way that can facilitate conversation even between groups. So I love that, the third grade community or, Muslim immigrant women, but also office workers, right? Like who don't have the same shared experiences, but again, we're all part of the same community. So, just want to put that out there because I think there's a fine line, right? We want to honor and respect and create that space for folks to show folks. But I think we also want to create that container where we can be collaborative and think outside the box and bring various groups together.
Very good. Ridership team, good with input.
I was just going to say it's been a great forum. Thanks, James. I've got 3 pages of notes. Vanessa's typing like crazy, and she's a better note taker than me. So this has been very helpful. Thank you. And we're excited to be a part of that. I would say, too, Security Operations Center is now going. We have now real-time feedback. And a part of that is security software. We're investing in that piece of really understanding what's happening out there in real time and being able to create some analytics with that. Really want to thank the IT department for really stepping up, and Ethan and his team to help with that. But that in that one small way, we're headed in that direction. But I think this is why equity is a pillar. We really want safety, particularly on that side, it's different for everybody. It's really about building that community, to Director Way's concept, and making sure everybody is feeling safe. And so I think we can get there, and we're building the tools to get there. So that's all.
All right, thank you guys. Let's move to infrastructure.
Quick props to Gwen for helping scribe some notes for us.
Trying to capture them.
Because it's as a facilitator, I know the magic to trying to really summarize all the words we're saying into something tight that'll have meaning tomorrow. Thank you so much, Gwen.
All right, so for the infrastructure group, they talked about access and capacity, service improvement, zero emission, state of good repair, and technology. Those were the 5 areas they talked about. So any feedback on those or any others, just like we did, kind of as a model?
All right. I see Director Edwards and then Director Frisbee.
I didn't have a whole lot, but I just really appreciate the what I call e-scheduling that you're going to do for the operators. I think that's very important. It's going to help condense things to something that makes sense and works better for the efficiency. So I think that's a great move. Thank you.
My natural tendency is to get very excited about everything you talked about. So I'm just going to acknowledge that I would like you all to come talk to us for 4 hours, and I won't ask you to do that. But I had a couple of quick notes. In both access and capacity and service improvements, to me, seem to get at what I think is one of the key challenges, which is service increase. And so I appreciate in some ways that shows up twice, and I hope we can be explicit about that in lots of ways. I would ask you to think about, and would of course bow to your expertise, but is it worth specifically calling out frequent service increase? I will say, as a writer, and from folks I talk to, and from the data we look at across the country, we know that's one of the best ways to get more folks to see transit as a good option. And so specifically calling out the number of folks with access to frequent service seems important. Mark, you look like you want to respond, which I would love.
No, well, absolutely. I mean, to attract ridership, you need to make it convenient, and a frequent service is really a big component of that. I think a challenge that we were discussing just the other day, is with the hybrid work, new world here. The ridership is, in my opinion, back to what we were at before the pandemic, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whereas Friday and Mondays are languishing. And so I don't know if that, I'm not the service planning person, but I don't know how that might affect how we go forward. Mm-hmm. But certainly the FX, and we're working with the service planning team with the Forward Together, and what infrastructure can support that, as well as then identifying kind of as an overlay the BRT master plan that we're planning. So.
That is my other note, is that I am so stoked for the BRT master plan. So just, I don't know, Gwen, if it's gold stars or exclamation points or whatever, but very excited to learn more about that. And I'm really glad to hear that that's underway. And then my last note is a little bit of a question. I appreciated the call out for the zero emission bus. And I am struggling with this note because I think it is important and it's a value of the agency, but it's also not directly related to ridership. And so James, you may tell me this may not fit but I think the zero emission bus is critical. We know, particularly from an environmental justice perspective, that BIPOC kids are disproportionately exposed to diesel particulates. The impacts are really kind of horrifying. And I am so glad the agency is moving in that space. I do wonder if that is actually a tactic under a larger goal around reducing GHGs, greenhouse gas emissions. We are part of the solution for our climate crisis. We also have our own challenges in that space. And so that would be my question for staff is zero emission bus the metric, or is it actually underneath a slightly larger metric? And I know anyone with an experience in GHG modeling just curled up in a ball and cried at that question. So I want to acknowledge smarter people than I know that this is a very hard question.
I think it might relate more to us as an agency being that leader and in the region and the industry of setting those goals and working towards it, even with the Vision 2030 and the ridership aspiration. So.
A great comment. If anything, this growing our service capacity, we have to make sure to reconcile that with our GHG goals, which are already trending towards saying we're going to get to zero while doubling capacity. Director Kellogg, or pardon me, Director Kim and Director Edwards.
Yeah. Well, thank you, infrastructure team. It's going to be our backbone. We literally physically would not be able to accomplish what we're all talking about here without the infrastructure, especially infotech. I would love to see a mapping of and a concrete timeline of tackling all of our technical debt, as well as projects, new fund projects moving forward as we're at the forefront of all this, so that by the time when we land 2030, other agencies, mobility agencies would be benchmarking our tech and our tech's, stack to really learn from and just marvel at, right? So, I don't know what would be helpful, but sort of as you're discussing, your thoughts, I just thought of, like some sort of a benefit realization calculation or cost calculation that sort of could be quantified. And of course, as I mentioned, a concrete timeline and a list would be super helpful. Thank you, team.
Thank you so much, Director Kim. We want the same things, and we're building that way direction. I'll just tell you that. You'll see more.
Director Lewis.
Oh. Thank you. One of the things that came to mind when you were, and this is just my thoughts, which can be odd sometimes, but you were talking about the aging infrastructure. And I don't know how you would frame this into a metrics, but what is our responsibility for cradle to the grave? Just getting rid of some of the things that we will remove out of service. I don't want to arrive in Tanzania and see a TriMet frame sitting in the field. That has happened. That's a real reality of where our aging infrastructure goes. And so I don't know how you would frame that. But if we are increasing, improving, what do we do? What are we doing responsibly to get rid of, and where is it going? Is it staying in country? And on an ending note, I would love to have a TriMet Max car for my apartment for small housing. No, I know you sell them. I would love to have one.
I think the Type 1s are about to get sunset. A couple of those,
yes. So keep me in mind. I'm in the market for a tiny home. Yes.
Nice.
The Type 1s are being retired. So just using that fleet as an example, we have 26 of those vehicles. We're giving away one, possibly two, one to the Oregon Museum, and then another for probably a community project. The hard part of that project is acquiring the land to put it on. The rest of them are going to be recycled, so they will be shredded by Schnitzer steel and turned into new things. we try to look at, what useful life is left and see if we can find some partners in country to buy these vehicles and reservice them. I think maybe Louisiana is looking at perhaps maybe interested in our Type 2 vehicles, using them on a campus down there, maintaining them, using for service around the campus. But in general, they're pretty hard to get rid of because just moving it around the city is about $20,000 just to truck it somewhere. So they're very difficult to give away. You may have one if you'd like.
Record it. Okay.
Director Kellogg?
Thank you. I've got a amalgamation of thoughts here. So, like Director Frisbee, I could talk about this for a long time, but I know we have a limited time period, so I'm going to keep these fairly brief.
Thank you.
As has been stated by a couple of people here, there's a bit of a Venn diagram aspect to some of these things where they're put into one silo, but they clearly cross over into others. And one of those I want to talk about, it wasn't mentioned, but I think we all understand it's coming and it's going to have a big effect, is tolling. And what that's going to do in terms of changing traffic patterns. All evidence nationally is that it will reduce congestion on the highways. But that doesn't mean those cars disappear. They're going to our local streets, the bus routes, and everything else. And so we have to anticipate how that's going to affect both of our, means of travel, whether it's an arterial, local street, whatever it is, and staying on top of that. Second, I want to reemphasize the point on the zero-emission buses. I know it's going to be a challenge to get there, but that can be an absolutely extraordinary accomplishment that will do good across so many sectors. So I encourage us to keep up with that. In terms of the state of good repair, and I'm not saying this is a problem today, but across all sorts of transportation systems, there's a big emphasis to build, but there's no budget to maintain, right? And I don't want this to be one day where we're looking at, well, we can't do any capital projects this year because we got to pay for all this stuff that we already have in operation that has fallen into disrepair. So a focus on that state of good repair with our existing and any future maintenance or any infrastructure. And last, access and capacity. One of the ways to look at the ridership goal, serving more communities, is by expanding access. And I'm going to summon the old ghost of the Southwest Corridor program. An objective view of our transportation system shows it serves West Hillsborough Gresham well, or West East. We've gone into the Southeast down in Clackamas County, but we're still missing that major arterial down into the southwest part of Portland, Multnomah County, Washington County. And these are areas that are growing, and they're slated to grow, right? With the concerns about housing and extending the urban growth boundary. I mean, we're going to all of a sudden have a transportation system that was designed for a map of 40 years ago as opposed to where that map is going, and perhaps rapidly. So looking at the Southwest Corridor, looking at east-west connectivity between the southern part of our counties, these are all areas that are ripe for transit service, right? And so if we can put this into our plan in terms of our vision of seizing opportunities and, creating opportunities, in fact, then I'd like to keep that on our radar as well. So again, sorry, mishmash comments, but thank you.
Thank you. I want to kind of go back to the operator again. I know in other venues, such as construction, they do what they call stretch and flex in the morning. Policemen are known for having a roll call where they talk about things that are going to impact their day. Do we do that with our operators at all, and different operators, because they may have a different day? If I'm on the MAX line, I'm going to have a different day probably than I'm a fixed route operator. And I think it would be good to maybe incorporate that into their day if it's not already, where they can have an opportunity to have those discussions prior to going to work in the day, and just kind of a check-in to prepare them for the day.
Thank you, Director Edwards. We do have our station agents on site with our operators at all of our locations for both rail and bus. And you're absolutely correct that they all interact and engage a little bit in a different way. We found our bus operators usually arrive earlier than our rail operators, and they do spend time talking to the station agents and assistant managers about specific things that are maybe going on in the area. If we have special events or disruptions that'll be happening, going through reroutes and detours with them. If they have stuff they need help with for paperwork, for HR, things like that, they assist with all that. Our rail team has a tendency to run in and run right out and not spend a lot of time, but there are people always available 24 hours a day to help them. And especially when we have kind of unique things going on, or like right now, open enrollment's coming up, we really make sure that we communicate and share those with them. I will say there are also ongoing efforts for engaging with our operators for their physical and mental health as well. So making sure that we share things that they can do when they're at a layover, go for a walk around the bus, stretches you can do on the, in your seat or on the edge of the bus, as well as multiple resources for mental health support. So it's very important to us.
And I'll just add one comment. As it relates to infrastructure specifically, is our design team has done an incredible job, interviewing and working with the operation and maintenance staff in order to solicit their input into the designs of the facilities that we're building. So when I got here, I got a tour of the Powell Garage, which was just an incredible example of how that process worked out at providing that interaction between the state agents and the operators, and giving, like opportunities to discreetly have, private conversations when necessary, and all the ergonomics as well. And so it's just, they've done a really good job on that. So.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, they've been intentionally built, both Center Street, when we remodeled Center Street, and then taking those lessons learned and moving over to Powell. They have been created to create an engaging environment where when the operator walks in, they see their support team right there, and then they also have space that they can enjoy separately, privately, quietly, all those things. Thank you, Mark. That was important.
Well, great. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned the mental health issue, because we all have mental health issues. And I think it's important. There's such a stigma attached to it that folks don't feel comfortable sharing unless they build those relationships. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Board. And I want to be mindful of our time. We're going through section 2 of 5, and we did save the best for last. So let's be mindful of that. And so I'll urge our Board, we can always ask questions, and I don't want to truncate discussion. Our learning will not end today, but anything you can do to help impart metrics to our team, this is going to be the pivotal functional role of what we're trying to give them in this session. And then they're going to come back with that and see what they use. In the interest of that, I have a few metrics real quick I want to give you with regards to infrastructure that are very basic, just for us to understand really where we are. And they really are about understanding our capacity. What is our total system capacity currently, for example? That'd be an interesting metric. And what is our total vacancy rate? That helps us begin to see what a delta is for opportunity within our current infrastructure before we start adding infrastructure. And one regarding to on-time performance that I'd love to see our infrastructure team bring forward is system vulnerabilities. Just to look, before we know where the money is, to start figuring out a way to identify where are potential perceived vulnerabilities in our system based on age or what have you. And then the final one is service reach. Much like with the Southwest Corridor, understanding where gaps are in service. We used an interesting metric during the service plan updates where there was like how much of our service region is accessible within a 20-minute commute, for example. That'd be a fantastic metric to be able to lay over our entire region and say, what % of our total region is accessible within a 20-minute trip. So those are sort of metrics that I think could be useful. And I'll leave it there. I see no other comments on this one, so I think unless you have more comments, we'll keep going.
Thank you, guys. Let's move on to people.
I just want to say, I just got an update. The event started at 11, and they already have 100 people there. So,
yay!
Yes.
And I also want to just say something. I think it's maybe it's not clear, but obviously it's many of us execs have responsibilities across all the areas. So if it's not explicit, please make sure it's implicit. For example, idea is across every pillar, communication is across every pillar, technology. And beyond what you're hearing today, we also are part of these groups as well. So just so you know, a lot of your concerns, we share them, but we're integrated in this approach.
So the topics, the focus areas were training and development and onboarding, recruiting, total rewards, career advancement, and employee experience, just to kind of refresh. So just like we've done in the last two, just kind of share your thoughts or questions.
Director Wayne?
Thank you. I'll try to keep it brief with the metrics here. But again, really great, job presenting and also laying out the foundational pillars that you see. Something that I want to add to this is also, and maybe you're already doing this, but if not, continuing to measure the outreach of who's applying. So, I think it's great to know, okay, these are the candidates that we have for final interviews and et cetera. But I think it's really important to continue to look at all of the data that we can collect around our demographics, around, this is the total pool, right, that have applied an interest in this particular job. And then I think the other thing that we can measure more is, John, what you were saying earlier of just really building that pipeline of, the students today, right? It could be very well, the operators of tomorrow and our execs and et cetera. So, and I think we can measure that, right? I think we can measure that with our, not only our community connections, but with the type of formal relationships that we can develop with school districts and, just again, different partners who are, working with the communities that we want to bring to work for the TriMet family. Those are the two that I have. Sorry. And then the last is, this is maybe more of a comment, but I don't know, just another idea to explore. But, I've been in various workplaces where when you enter, let's say as a step one, right, into a job, there's like 27 steps in between, right? Between the step one and the 27, when you can finally reach a certain compensation level. So, I would want us to kind of revisit the various steps that we may have to, again, just, make sure that if folks are ready to get to that next level, they don't have to wait, right, 10 years to do that or 5 years to do that, but that there's increased opportunities for them.
Thank you, Director Wayne. Director Kim, and then Director Edwards.
Yeah. When I think about the career advancement piece, I would love to see us exerting the same amount of energy and attention on retaining retaining talents, whether it's from, internal sort of a job fair, but internal, or whatever the tools may be for stay interviews and so forth, to other tools that we can implement, so that the numbers, as we need more bodies, to run this operation, we're not only, recruiting talents, but retaining those talents and refining those talents. So I'd love to see some KPIs around that. And second point was around customer satisfaction. It also relates to, of course, community, the presence and reputation the other team has discussed. But, I envision this, a minute and a half long short videos that covers our visible and invisible staff operators, right? This heartwarming sort of videos. And it's this 90 to 120 second, those videos that actually, really a communication device that gets pushed out to our community. And they hear our narratives, similar narratives over and over, exactly what we talked about, that what's going to be on our shirt. That messaging, I think some sort of a metric could be an indication of have the public, have they heard our message? Because then once they hear, then it will resonate with them, and I think they will be compelled to act, and then we can follow the standard KPIs for the net promotion scores and like all the other tools that are already existing out there. So thank you for focusing on our people and our existing people.
Thank you, Director Kim, Director Edwards, and then Director Kellogg.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Thank you for that earlier presentation. I thought that was well. And what I heard was cultural growth and change, and I also heard staff development up and down. And what I appreciate mainly about that is that you're not only embracing that, but you're advocating for that as well, and that's important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So metrics we're focused on. President Gonzalez, thank you. This may have been mentioned. There was a lot of information. So how often do we do an internal survey of our employees? Anonymous, tell us what's working, tell us what's not. Because we can sit up here and have great ideas about, plans for them and everything else. But what do they say? And how often do we hear it?
Yeah, we do several surveys. We do a Your Voice survey every couple of years. Your Voice survey every couple of years, and then we do more focus surveys within that time frame. So we work with a consultant to provide us kind of the best timelines on when to do that, based if it's too often, if it's not often enough. So we really do try to heavily focus on other ways of gathering information, but definitely formal surveys.
Yeah, and making sure that's robust,
Yeah.
incentivizing people to do it, because that's the best feedback we're going to get on this topic. And then again, President Gonzalez, I know you wanted to keep it to metrics, but I wanted to share an experience just very briefly. This weekend, I went to the rodeo, the bus rodeo. General Manager Sue was kind enough to shepherd me around and show me some people. And what I can tell you is that what we're doing now is working. The attitudes of those employees, the camaraderie amongst them was fantastic. Each and every one of them I met, well, not each and every, but almost to a T, they said, I started out here doing this at an entry-level job, and now they're a supervisor. And, it was clear that it was a family of employees. And so I just wanted to share that experience with everybody.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. Director Frisbee?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. I want to echo what Director Kim emphasized and also Director Kellogg's experience. Really, I think the formal pathways for talent development internally, as well as as part of that onboarding process, helping people think about here's where you're coming in. Is this it, right? Which might be the case, or are there more opportunities? Is so critical for helping folks feel like TriMet is not just a temporary job, but a long-term place that they can be. And I similarly at the bus rodeo this weekend, I ended up chatting with a bunch of operators, and in particular, a woman whose story keeps sticking out to me. She's a rehire. She has a master's in public health and a master's in teaching. And she's starting as an operator and is really focused on becoming a trainer. And had already figured out the path, and here's how long it's going to be, and here's what I need to do. And so that for me was a great story of we are setting the stage, helping her figure out how to navigate it. And I hope that, I keep thinking about all the operators and all the folks who are at the hiring fair right now, and how can we give them the tools both to figure out their passion and help TriMet be their avenue to do that. So thanks for this.
Thank you. Director Kellogg, you have some more?
Oh, pardon me.
It's okay. It's okay. And Director Frisbee, just double checking here, sanity checking myself. Do you have more? No, it's all right. We're and I'll drop mine. No worries. All right, just to add, I think the obvious metrics you already used, demographics, retention rates, those are going to be critical to maintain in your conversation. One that I would love to add in case it's not there already, is utilization rate for any career advancement services. So if you do have employee resource groups, what's the utilization rate by employees? If you do have career track mentorship or counseling, what's the utilization rate of those? So I think any service that you bring for staff, or benefit program or whatever, what are the utilization rates by staff of those programs? That lets us make sure we're leveraging them. And I see no other comments from our board regarding the people category.
All right, thank you. We'll move to resources. While they're coming up, resources focus areas were stewardship of existing, new resources, doing the right thing now, and then metrics was the last piece of that.
Well, I think we need to start off with giving Director Lewis some credit for identifying a potential new revenue generator of selling our light rail vehicles as tiny homes.
All right. Let's jump right in, Director Lewis.
I'll go first. I do have a quote from as we were going through increased ridership, infrastructure, people. I'm in the middle of, tax extensions, and my brain is like in the money. So I have a quote from Snoop Dogg. My mind's on our money, and our money is on my mind. How are we going to get there? And I'd love to be part of the budget and putting this together, because 7 years is going to come really quick. And hopefully I'd like to see metrics, because you didn't give us any details. You indicated that you had not started. So something. That's it.
All right. Any other Snoop Dogg quotes? Director Frisbee, Director Kim?
I mean, between coming up with the tiny home proposal and Snoop Dogg quotes, I cannot follow our esteemed vice chair. But I did just want to, I think, emphasize my eagerness, and I think most of my colleagues' eagerness in seeing a more fleshed out proposal here. This is a requirement to make any of the other pieces happen. And, we have upcoming challenges with the sunset of the payroll tax increase, and I like to think of it as additional opportunities with things like tolling and a longer legislative session coming up and all of those pieces. So I'm excited to dig into this.
Thank you. Director Kim?
Yeah. Well, this one's hard, and although you pitched it like it's easy, but more money in the wallet, right? It's hard because, well, one, I think we're going to need some concrete timeline for just a basic modeling of what the sort of, to move twice the amount of people, to just basic modeling of how much what the our budget needs to look like, must look like, just bare essentials, before adding the bells and whistles of the nice screens and nice that stuff. And I think like a key part that your team could do in connection with that is identification of potential revenue streams. Not today, not tomorrow, but hopefully by 2029 or so, where we can tap into those. And it's, of course, is going to rely on that tree of connections. Perhaps more emphasis at the board level and senior staff level to interact with the locally electeds and the appointed, and so that we can really double down on having at least a practical avenue to get to that number, that magic number that's going to be quite large. So I think this one's going to be on all hands on deck, where everyone's name's got to be on that tree. We're gonna need at least 4 or 5 bullets from each person to work their relationship, and in a good way squeeze everything we got so that we can get there in years to come. So thank you for the hard work.
Director Lewis.
Yeah, just a comment. Even though it's internal for us, we do need to propose this to our communities of how our resources will look to even support 2030. I mean, we know the inside, but what is the external picture that we will give when we are sitting in those focus groups? Because they're going to be like me. So how are we going to pay for this? And so what are the words? What is the message that we will send? And how will we measure that? Favorable, unfavorable? Just thoughts.
Very good. And I'll add some potential metrics here with regards to resources and a couple random thoughts. Obviously, fare box revenue percentage continues to be a valuable metric for us to understand. I'd love to begin looking at what we can determine through evasion rates as far as what we're leaving on the table from a financial side. So translating that to the potential for additional revenue from fare box, as well as the utilization rate of subsidy programs. I know that we allocate funds, STIF allocates a certain amount of funds. It's not clear what the drawdown rate is of those. If they're, getting spent in the third of the time that we've allocated for them, or if we got money left over at the end of the year. Those things will help us, again, identify where the hotspots are for opportunity, for improvement. And with regards to resources, I want us to be very cognizant of the portfolio of potential value that we have here. The seats for rides is one of them, obviously, and there's farebox resources that come from that. We have a growing amount of data that is becoming available as a resource, which is not only useful to us, but to our jurisdictional partners. So everything from occupancy rates, the hours of movement, the way in which our data is responding to intersections and signals, as well as the occupancy density of our vehicles and the right-of-way. There's a lot of information that's becoming available and useful to our jurisdictional partners. I believe we're getting close, if we're not there already, to a place where we can start gaining some contracted dollars for our ability to share some of that data. And then obviously there's the human and real estate infrastructure. The obvious answer is selling ad space, but I'm not just talking about that. I'm really talking about, with our jurisdictional partners, what can our stops have as far as information? How useful is that to our jurisdictional partners? The real estate inside the vehicles, is there anything that we can do to leverage partnerships inside of the vehicles, as well as a resource generator? I think that, we have a lot there. And then finally, I'm going to say merch sales. I believe we are underutilized in as far as how our online store can become more of an outward expression. Last time I checked, I haven't seen things on the rack at Pioneer Square, at any of our transit hubs, themed seasonal stuff. I think there's a large opportunity for our community to show their love for TriMet if we can lean into that potential. And, there's I think, potential there. The mad love can be shown. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of potential there for us to do that. Thank you.
Just real quick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Wayne.
Very quick. I'm looking at the one of the pillars that Nancy, you talked about, which I think is such a great question of, are we doing the right thing now? And just continuing to ask ourselves that. And I think I heard another person say earlier of, the 2030 plan is really an opportunity for us to also say no to some things, right, that have not that have not really come to fruition. So I think it's important to keep that in mind of as we're, again, planning the budget for the next several years, of what are we really good at? What are the things that we are really good stewards of that we want to keep building, expanding upon with our resources? But also, what are lots of things that we can just be saying no to in order to save money?
All right. I see no other comments coming from the board, and we're here coming to the fifth. Thank you. To the fifth section, bringing it back to people, community.
And the three areas of focus were relationship, presence, and reputation.
All right, board members. Director Lewis.
A thought on metrics. And my question is, what's the board doing to help our relationship in the community? How often are we seen with our name tags at events? I love doing all kinds of community events locally. But I think there should be some metrics on us to represent in our community. That's part of what we should be doing. Just a thought. Sorry, I
Perfect.
didn't mean to throw everybody under the bus here.
Well,
I love it. Thank you.
a tour of your new Max tiny home would be a good start. Director Edwards, the Director Frisbee.
Well, thank you for that segue, Director Lewis. I was just at the Hollywood Transit Center open house, so.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have more of those.
Yeah.
And we need to show our faces as well, I would agree. I think it's important to have listening sessions where we truly listen to the public. That helps build relationships. And once we listen and we hear them, then we have to react and we have to let them know that we heard them. I think that's very important as well. That's what's going to build the relationships. Relationships, I think, are key to everything that we do. And if we build those relationships, we're going to be successful. I think that our reputation as well is built on being a good neighbor, and that means a good neighbor in every way. If we see something going on with our neighbor, with our neighbor's property, our neighbor's well-being, we have to be a good neighbor and be supportive in any way that we can. And I think that's important as well. I know we're not a social agency, but that doesn't stop us from being good neighbors.
Director Frisbee and then Director Lewis.
Well, I selfishly want to echo the merch idea, President Gonzalez. I really want the old school TriMet map on a sweatshirt.
So I do want to let everyone know that we do have a merchandise sales on our website, and we do actually offer the map on a shower curtain. I don't know if it's on a T-shirt.
Yeah, it's not on a
It's not on a sweatshirt. I've looked.
No socks or beanies or.
I would do socks. Oh, I would totally do socks.
So
we can do that. Yeah.
Anyways, help me with my Christmas shopping. But more in a more focused manner. I appreciate and echo Director Lewis's call to make the board show up and be partners in this. The under relationships, these are such hard metrics, but one of the things that I was thinking of in this context is, and I have, I am really hoping that this Vision 2030 helps and is useful as a tool for going out to our local government partners and our community orgs and saying, here's what we need to do in this part of the region. Here's what, it means FX service in these places. It means this, it means that. How can you help us? Like, what are we doing here? And let's acknowledge that most of the right-of-way that we operate on, with the exception of the light rail system, we don't own. And so we are partnering with our local governments to do the better bus work, to do the BRT piece. And it's a complicated negotiation with them. So the thing that I would suggest we think about under relationships is not just how many folks we can call, but how many folks are truly partnering with us. How many folks buy into this vision and are willing, whether it's in-kind staff support, whether it's right-of-way, whether it's, financial support, all those pieces, who's got skin in the game to help reach this vision because they believe that it is part of improving their community. So I'm very excited for all this work.
I appreciate that comment, and I think that for us, when we have gone out to meet with community groups or jurisdictional partners, there hasn't been an ask. It's more of an update of what we're looking for and doing. And I think that with Vision 2030, it gives us that ability to say, and much like what you just said for this community, this is what we plan on doing, and this is where we need your help. If you want us to get there, this is what, and I love that idea. I love that whole notion. So thank you.
Director Kellogg and then Director Kim.
Yeah, just to follow up on your comment, I think one of the things that we've talked about today are a lot of metrics, and how do we use those not only internally but externally? So these are the things we're going to do, but these are the things we have done, right? And General Counsel Devine, I want to bring you back to something you mentioned because it struck me like a bolt of lightning that prior to COVID, there was this relationship building about streamlining the permit process across jurisdictions. Where is that today? Mm-hmm. And what can we do to bring it back? I mean, to shave all of that I don't want to say unnecessary, but seemingly unnecessary time off of projects and everything else. Where is that today?
Good question. I'm looking over at Mark Doran. I'm going to throw him under the bus, but I know it's being kind of revived. It's been, as we come out these last 6-8 months, it's kind of like coming out from a foxhole and looking around and trying to rebuild those relationships. And that was why we started with relationships as the first one under community, because to JC's point, so many of the relationships, so many of the people that were part of, like even our relationships at the Bureau of Developmental Services or Metro, or you fill in the blank, those people are gone. They're not there anymore. So and our executive director of engineering and construction is new as well. So it's the rebuilding of all of that. So yeah, in progress is the short answer.
I don't know how we put a metric on that, but it's one of those things that when I heard it, it instantly clicked and said, yes, yes.
Exactly.
Okay. And the final point I want to make about the metrics on this is that, and maybe I'm missing something, but it seems the only way we're going to get a metric on a lot of these things are the results at the ballot. Whatever we can do to share the internal metrics that we have that show that we're making progress, that show that we're responsible stewards of our money and everything else, I think that's going to be essential to achieving that ultimate
That is where we landed when we were talking internally, just so you know, if that's any validation, but just results. And also the one other thing, again, squishy, the lack of surprise. The lack of surprises to us. Hearing about it in the media is not the way that we want to have a relationship with our jurisdictional partners, for example.
I would even just note to your point about the permitting, how do we know if we're successful? I think it's looking at what we estimate for a time frame for permitting, and hopefully coming in under that, because we have worked our relationships and done it so well. For instance, on Columbia, our bus base, we have a year worth just for the timing for permitting in getting that accomplished. That's a lot. And when we talked to Commissioner Rubio, she just stopped in her tracks. She goes, "You've got to be kidding me." And we're like, yes, we actually have that amount of time allotted for it. So I think it's really working and developing those partnerships, everyone understanding the problem and how we can move some of these things forward.
Thank you.
Director Kim?
Yeah, the community bucket's squishy. It's difficult. It's nuanced. Couple existing thoughts that I just want to, mention again is one, doubling down on social media engagements, and again, it goes both ways. It's communication. We're talking to folks. It's the old school way of those open houses and counting how many folks showed up or submitted something. Sure, we can continue that, absolutely. But what are other avenues of how you and I communicate with our friends and our family? And capture. Let's go to that those channels. Another bucket I thought was volunteer hours and retention of volunteers, corporate volunteers and individual volunteers. Goodness, get them to become one of us, even for just 2 hours. And I think that will really build that relationship and ownership in the hearts of those individuals, our customers that we serve, and get them buy-in to what we're trying to do and how we could always use the extra help. And so that could sort of be an organic way of growing that close-knit relationship with each of our volunteers and corporate volunteers. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Kim. Director Way, and then Director Kellogg. Oh, Director Way.
Oh, thank you. I think I mentioned this in our the board strategy session under community. I got really excited, so hopefully everyone here will too. But I'll raise the idea again because I think it is a measurable, tangible metric. But wouldn't it be cool to have transit days, like focused transit days in Portland, in various cities, and all of the different relationships that we have, and that these transit days, it's accountability, right, to the community partners and stakeholders, with their commitment of yes, we're going to get all of our employees, for example, on Mondays to have Mondays be our transit days, and again, they can make it fun, they can create incentives. But I think it also creates what you were all saying about the branding and the visibility of us literally like putting our actions where this vision is. So just some ideas of things that we can actually tangibly measure with our partners.
I loved what you said, and I would love you to share it with the rest of the board about Pack the Max, what Milwaukee High School does.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so this is an idea that one of our guidance counselors at Milwaukee High School, I think he's been doing this for over a decade, but he is again, a high school counselor for about 20 years, but every year at Milwaukee High School, they pack the max with high school students who are graduating on their way to graduate. They fill up the max with, they wear their caps and gowns, go to the high school graduation. And I think it's just so cool that they have sort of this yearly tradition where, they're off to graduate, but they're also off to take the Max train together and kind of share that last moment. So
That's awesome.
encouraging all other districts to do that too, if you're listening.
Perfect. And perfect segue. In thinking about the community, I do have a metric I want to bring to you that I'm thinking about, but I'd like to first emphasize who I believe in my mind our community is. And I believe, much like with the rider profiles, it behooves us to have profiles of our community, stakeholder types. And these are classifications, if you will. And of course, the first classification, ambassadors. I think like the Pack the Max counselor, that would be an ambassador. We have other individuals that have gravitational force that can bring their star power, their influencer status, that become magnets to create, experiences for riders. So they're part of the community. Clearly, our governmental partners, our security partners are part of the community. We should have specific classification there. Mobility solution providers, public and private. I think that's a community sector. The other ones are more geographically associated, like job centers, venues, anchor destinations, as well as neighbors along our corridors, where we have high-frequency routes. I think every business, every church, every school, every organization along those routes become potential partners for specific things. And then, of course, our riders at large. And as Director Lewis emphasized, our board. We're also a community member. And finally, the metric, whether it's the board, ambassadors, neighbors along corridors, I think I really liked your relationship mapping. And I believe an added thing to that would be to sort of classify the status of that relationship. We all want to become power users. We all want to be 5-star, hitting on all cylinders, but we might not all begin there. And it would be good for, within our 27 municipalities, for TriMet to do an assessment and say, well, here's where I think 10 of our municipalities are 5-star power users. Meanwhile, the other 17 are 2 to 3-star users. And it lets us engage with those jurisdictions and say, hey, this is where we are. Is this where we'd like to be? Is this where we can go? These are just ways for us all to kind of understand where we are in that relationship. I think that would be a useful exercise. Okay. Any other comments? I know, Sam, we're eating into some of your closing remarks. Director Lewis, please.
Hopefully it's, final comment. I don't mean to I threw our board under the bus, and so now comes general manager.
You're a 5-star user over here.
Okay. Yes, I do see you about in the community as well. But one of the things that I have not heard, and I know we have a lot of momentum, but Shelley brought it out of after COVID, where did some of that momentum go? And so I'm looking at the entire Vision 2030. Is this something that would go to our general manager as succession planning? I mean, folks may retire, it will move on. You do have that? Okay. Well, I was thinking of, is this something that we put on to our general manager as the succession of keeping this alive? 7 years seems close, but it's far away. There may be retirements, changes, and we have a collective group of invested folks here in this room, but when we shift and change, hopefully no more COVIDs, but how do we keep, what's the succession of moving us forward and on to 2040, 2050? Is there a plan for the whole piece?
I think we'll make it a prerequisite to retirement. Just teasing. Don't get scared. Don't get scared.
And I would just answer that by saying, and not that you were looking for an answer, but I think that a lot of the work that we do becomes changes in processes, changes in our considerations, changes in how we do, and it begins to be built into our DNA so that you don't necessarily have to worry about succession planning, but that it just becomes a part of TriMet and how we do business. Because from what what we're presenting to you is how we want to change the organization to accomplish all of these things, whether it's the environment or being a good community member. And so hopefully at some point in time, we will begin making these changes to processes and infrastructure and considerations, and it becomes part of our DNA. And so that really is TriMet evolving.
I'm kind of leaning into when we change or if we change general managers.
Yeah.
I remember our last general manager, and they bring us a thought and a view and going forward, the dream walkers. And so that's what I'm looking at. How do we, what is the plan? And a lot of large organizations do not have that. We get a new president, things change. So that's kind of what I'm
I get it.
looking at.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. With that, I want to thank once again our executive team and bringing your ideas forward, being receptive to ours. Gwen, thanks once again for capturing stuff. So between the microphones, hopefully some of this got recorded, the writing down, and your attention, we hope we've given you something of value to take back to your desks and really come back with some plans. And I want to thank the board for an engaging and inspiring discussion. You make my job not easy because you have so much to contribute to this, and I think that's the best of all potential issues to have in trying to keep us on time, which I'm not doing a great job of. No. So I'm going to say with that, I'm grateful to all for this process, and I think we're setting up a positive path forward. And with that, I'm going to hand it on over to Sam. Take it over, buddy.
Appreciate it, President Gonzalez and board. Just a couple of quick points here. Yes, I'm sure it's going to be the top of my objectives and goals as I move forward. And it'll be something for whoever the next general manager that comes in as well when that time comes. Yeah. All right. So thank you all. This has been, we've achieved a lot today, and I'm really impressed by what we've done here, by the TriMet team, and I'm really incredibly grateful to you. This has just been an eye-opening experience for me to sit back and hear the board really engage into our vision here. I basically told the leadership a week ago that I really believe in investing in building relationships, and we need each other. We need each other in order for this to be successful. So I really appreciate that. So let's talk about what's ahead very quickly. Internally, staff is going to be reconvening to review and refine the plan based on the feedback that you've shared today. From there, we're going to hold a expanded directors exchange. So we're going to be bringing our managers and supervisors into the conversation. So now we're going another layer into the organization to map out further actions and how Vision 2030 will inform and update our business plan and informs everyone's objectives. So every staff person will have Vision 2030 as an objective for them and their goals and objectives as we move forward. And then we're going to look ahead to when will we come back to the board, kind of what our next steps. I know we have a board retreat that's coming up in November. One of the things that we're going to talk about there is safety. Safety is coming up at the end of October as well, and security. But we're also thinking about, during the board retreat, having a conversation with you about Vision 2030. And of course, we're going to continue to build excitement, buy-in, and ownership of this effort. I know that there's a big push coming forward as we start taking this out on our roadshow to the community. So there's a full schedule that we're going to really talk to you. But this takes full agency buy-in and board support and board backing and also community support, because it's critical to work as a team to be able to reach this goal, this vision. I'll say this before I turn it back to you, President Gonzalez, is that two things. One, this vision is just not a dream. And I want to be real clear, and we've really talked about this. It's a promise to the Portland metro region. It's a promise of a brighter, more connected, and more sustainable future as we move forward. So, board, thank you for being on this journey with us. Staff, thank you for what you've done today as well. Gwen and Felicia, really appreciate your help. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, President Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, General Manager Dessou. Once again, thanks to everyone for your participation today. Your feedback is very meaningful, and it will help support this agency-wide effort. And I just want to emphasize that we are the people that are helping shape this future. Whether we're the right ones or not, we're the ones that are here. This is the moment. This is the here. This is the now. So bring your best self into this work. Help us shape this future. And rest assured that you've got the commitment of the board. You've got the commitment of our leaders and in trying to see this through. Sam, we're at your beck and call. Get the most out of each one of us to make sure to bring this vision forward. And finally, a note to our community at large. You know, this is a promise to our community, but you are part of this ecosystem of success for us. So we rely on you to help us bring this vision to life. So come back, get on the Max, get on the bus, ride it, share it with a friend, and help us become better, because it's through your experience that we really get to learn where the opportunities are. And so before we button up today, I'd love to open up the floor to my fellow board members if they have any final thoughts and considerations they'd like to put out in today's session. And I didn't give you much of a warning. Director Edwards.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. I just would hope that whatever we do, whatever plan we come up with is malleable, flexible, and not rigid, so that we can always be able to change and keep it relevant and make sure that it's working for not only us, but it's working for the community that we serve.
Thank you. Fellow board members, final thoughts? General Manager Dessou.
Also want to give a thanks and a shout out to James Madison. Really appreciate you being here as well with that.
Ah, yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. As we're wrapping up now, I think the final thought I have is, the road ahead is a challenging one. What a beautiful bunch of people! Look at that. It's a challenging one. I mean, we are about to do a lot of things that we haven't done before. We're reaching beyond the sort of nuts and bolts of running on time into really trying to bring back a relationship with public transit and to put our agency in a place where it can be an advocate, a leader, a steward, an ambassador, and an instrumental part of what makes livability in our region something worth being proud of. So let's do it. All hands on deck. I think that it's a future filled with challenges and immense possibilities. So I encourage everybody here to lean into that work. Bring your whole self, bring your best self, and let's challenge one another to do better. So with the strength of our community and with our TriMet team, I really do feel like it is within reach, this moonshot of 120 million rides within a year. So let's go to it, and I look forward to this journey along your side. So I invite everyone, Sam, our board member, our executive team, to finish up today with a group photo, if we could, to commemorate this, because it's worth doing. So let's recreate, everyone get your hats, and let's have a photograph. We have extra hats.
Okay. Yeah,
we're good.
Prop hats.
I have prepared.